I'm testing some music, sorry. Sorry, I just got caught up on music. You can hear that in the back. Alright, let me just fix this. Alright, sorry about that. Today is not my day. I need to... The bitrate's terrible. Oh, you are listening. Can you hear that in the background? I don't like the drums yet. I want to distort. Like, I have kind of like this like weirder drum groove thing that I really want to mess around with, but I want to distort it and make it little like, well, I want to pitch it down for one, but also to make it a little more, I don't know, like kind of like an 808 vibe by distorting it to make it sound more like it's like a sub bass sort of a vibe to it. Okay, all right. Alrighty, folks. Folky, smoky, pokey dokies. What am I doing? I'm out of it. I'm super out of it, honestly. Da, 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 da. I forgot that I was doing something. Where am I? No. Ooh, beep. Okay, what is this? Do 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 do. Yeah, I'm feeling more inspired. Okay. I won't be able to type much today. That's okay. I gotta do chores too. I really did not start this on time. Also, my bit rate's weird. Okay, now it's fine. Okay, I don't know. Okay, well, let me just go over here for a second. Hi. I'm a sleepy little person. Do. I'll just talk, I guess, for a minute while I set this up. Yeah, I was just working on music. It felt good to, I was in the zone, so I was like, let's just get some of these ideas down. It's just good for me to mess around, you know? But yeah, so just feeling like more okay today about life. I think everyone's going, well, I think a lot of people are going through a similar feeling to me, and if I talk, sorry for knocking you out of, no, it's fine, I needed to stop. It's like, there's a limit, you know what I mean? Like, you can only do so much before you're like, what am I doing? Woo. Okay, so let me get my headset. Ideally, the goal is that, like, everything kind of can happen, like, the zone can happen, you know? Without anything else getting weird. Did you see that YouTube that I put in Watch Party where he's talking about, like, getting sidetracked? I kind of want to listen to that again. I'm not sure how YouTube does that. Like, are you allowed to watch other people's stuff like they do on Twitch? Who really knows, I guess. Okay, and then I have to figure all this out. Oh, okay. No, that's about music. What? Oh, that's cool. South Carolina. Wow. That's... Okay, here, I'm just gonna... Was this the one? I think this was the one.
Hello.
I'm just gonna go ahead and play. I don't think it really matters. I don't think. Let me fix all my settings because you won't be able to hear it. And then we'll go over to do the things. What have I done? What have I done? Oh no. Okay, so that's got to be like that now. Can I drag this off? Okay, I can.
My name is Abel Abelson. I'm the writer of a few books, links in the description. And in this video, I would like to continue the series on pitfalls and mistakes for intellectually gifted people, taking myself as an example, as I made a lot of mistakes. And specifically in this video, I'd like to talk about getting sidetracked as one of the main challenges in life for me, and I think for people like me. So what do I mean by getting sidetracked? There's two aspects of zoom out levels of this. One is on a daily or even hourly basis. You get up in the morning, you have a lot of great ideas of what you're going to do with your day, with your life that day, and then you start doing this, and then there's kind of this, you could call it a kind of neurotypical wave of stuff that comes your way, that comes rolling through your house, your life, your internet content, your professional relations, your everything. It comes rolling over you and you get completely lost in it. And at the end of the day, what did you do? It feels like nothing. You just struggled with this wave of neurotypicality. On a second level, a much more zoom out level, this also applies to your complete life. So you may have a kind of general drives or even conscious directions which you want to take in your life, and you get sidetracked over and over again and don't seem to get those things on track. You don't seem to be able to realize them.
Rowan, I'll be
Again,
in there after
sense,
this. It's
because
gonna be
of
like
this
10 minutes.
gigantic wave of a neurological reality that isn't yours, of an existence
Are
that
you
is
in
not
chat?
exactly like yours, but that by its sheer majority and its sheer quantity and sum of little and big influences, again, pushes you away and almost forces you on sidetracks. I compare it often as like going out for a walk in the
All right, let me go to the ant metaphor. Okay.
events, and then there's this one end here and one end there, and
Let me go here.
events, and then there's this one end here.
That's fine.
And one end there and one end somewhere else that wakes up and that actually feels things very differently, that actually normally, naturally tends to go in other directions, to do stuff in another way, to feel reactions that are different to the same events than the others. And the challenge for these ants, if you want, is to realize their life. So how can we realize this to not get sidetracked all the time? To start with, you have to be very, very, very conscious about neurodivergence and the details of it. So by neurodivergence, I mean the individual differences between brains, if you want, from one individual to another. Now, I know that for the greater part, human brains are equal. I know. At the same time, there are small differences that are big enough to really make your existence significantly different from other people, to really make your daily experience, your hourly, minutely, second by second experience quite different from that of other people. And the first thing is to be very aware of this. So in my past, I wasn't enough aware of this. I wasn't aware of this at all. It's not what you're taught at school. It's not what you're taught by the, let's say, politically correct articles all over, because all those tend to stress the similarity, which is there. I don't deny it. Of course, we're very much similar, more similar than different. But these differences are significant and important. And if you don't take them into account, one, you bump into a lot of walls without understanding why. And two, you cannot realize your life as it is natural for you and as it should be for you. So this is the first thing. Be very aware of neurodivergence. The second thing is accepting that you won't change all those other people. Now this might sound logical, but in my case, I unconsciously kind of thought that below the surface there was a kind of identical human setup in everyone. And that if I would discuss with people and pass on information and stuff like that, that we would finally end up seeing things more or less the same way. It doesn't work like that. Of course, it can work like that between people who have a very similar neurological structure, a very similar mind. So you can discuss with these people and you'll get on similar grounds. Other people simply have very different reactions to the same triggers, to the same events, to the same world, if you want, and you won't discuss your way out of this difference. They see what they see, they feel what they feel, and it is different than your reactions, feelings, and perceptions. And it's not as if you have to correct them or add something to them. It's simply the way they naturally see and feel and react to things. There's nothing to correct. It's already as it should be. But it is different. And this lack of accepting these differences is a major reason of getting sidetracked. So you get up in the morning, you want to do your stuff, you open the door, you meet someone, or you see someone that has a very different reaction to an event than yourself. And instead of simply accepting this as an instance of neurological difference at work, the fact that this person has a brain that reacts in this way to reality, okay, it's like it is. You make the error, the mistake of trying to correct their reaction, and you're sidetracked. Now, of course, you can give it a try, why not? But we easily get lost in really stubbornly trying to fix these things. We feel it as fixing, but actually we're not fixing anything. We're just trying to turn a zebra in a giraffe. There's no sense to it. We're trying to turn a chimpanzee in a bonobo, or vice versa. It doesn't work like that. And we're sidetracked. A third factor in getting sidetracked is that you measure your own success by the success of these others. So they go in their direction and they may succeed very well or not, but some of them succeed very well and they exude this success. And you may be mistakenly trying to be successful in the way they are successful. But their success isn't your success. They have a different mind, a different brain setup. It's like they are chimpanzees, you're a bonobo, or they are giraffe and you're a zebra. It's not their success if it's a giraffe reaching high for the top leaves of a tree. It's not something you should be concerned with. It's again getting sidetracked. You need to focus on your own success. And you have to define your own success in your own terms that correspond perfectly with your natural self. So there we get to the aspect where it's really important to really get to know yourself. This seems simple to say, but it isn't, because it's not all that simple to tell the difference between what other people put into your mind about yourself, the difference between what you would like yourself to be based on what others would like you to be, and what and who you really are. So this is a whole mission to undertake, a whole journey to undertake, which is very interesting, but which shouldn't be minimized. It's difficult, and as long as you haven't started this journey, you're simply very much mistaken about who you are, and you'll get sidetracked because of that. You'll also, of course, have to really understand how others do function. Study them as they are. And this is why I wrote my book, How to Handle Neuro.
So sorry it was quiet, but that was like the part that I really wanted to get to. So my whole thing is that I think that the way that okay, let me start this over. I think that the approach to goals is different between brains, and that there's usually some sort of a marriage of these at least two systems of reaching goals that seem to be like usually at work, and then I'm gonna go over to Discord. But what I think ends up happening is, okay, I'm going over there now. What I think ends up happening is we never cultivate this other way intentionally enough, and for me, I have to ignore more information socially. And I think with social media, we've gotten to the point where everybody's having problems with the amount of social information, and everyone is kind of getting sidetracked by that. So on some level, it feels like it's exacerbating something in myself to the point of absurdity, and it makes it a little bit easier to want to challenge it. And then when I see things like this that challenge it, I think pretty successfully, it's much more validating, because I was already in the realm of like, well, this is getting to be almost like cartoonishly exaggerated, the amount of social information that I've never been good at anyway. So then to watch other people floundering with it, who are able to make social objectives and goals that I can't, because they use that other system of the at least two that I'm talking about for setting goals and reaching goals. I'm like, okay, so then I think more people are going to need a break from having to reach goals by navigating complex social cues, which is what I think the internet is potentially doing. Well, no, it's what I think it is doing it to people, amongst other things, I guess. But like, I think it's making people have these complex social goals, and they're like switching so fast. It's like the trends move you know, 3 per second, and then by the end of the day, there's a whole new trend. And what are you supposed to do with all the work that you invested into yesterday's trend? It just doesn't really translate at all, because it's just this random scattershot of social cues going all over the place all the time that aren't even really landing with other people. It's just like you're being hit by a random stream of social cues every time you go online. And some of those currents are just so overwhelming that it feels like it's the whole world. Like it feels like it's bigger than anything, because it's too big. There's too many social cues and signals and interactions for you to calculate it. And I think it's like hitting everybody, but it's hit autistic people prior to it becoming as absurd as it is. So it's like, how do you respond to that? I don't know yet, but I just know that like one thing to do is to set goals that don't rely on social information, which is feels crazy right now. But then to get out of that, it's like these social pressures are pressuring us to buy stuff, or to become a spokesperson so other people might buy stuff, which is also crazy, and unattractive. So that could like motivate people to get out of the whole system. Is like, that doesn't even feel like a worthwhile goal. Is like, if you do get attention and you will have money to live, that's one thing, right? So that's, I mean, ultimately I think that's why we're doing it. I think that's why we're continuing to do it, even though it's gotten very unhealthy and doesn't feel good, and everyone feels pretty not okay, like very sidetracked, right? So we all feel incredibly sidetracked, and then, or a huge number of people feel sidetracked. I'll say it that way, who are trying their best not to be sidetracked. And then if that's what's going on, what you'll end up having is people who are still kind of going for it, because it's the only way to feasibly get out of this financial trap, right? Where we don't have the ability to have a home or live comfortably, at making choices that you really want to make that are expensive. Like a lot of life choices cost a lot of money, even if they're just natural parts of mammal life. Like humans have monetized all of it. So everything that you want to do as a mammal, and anything that you want to do that's more sophisticated, costs a lot of money, not even a little bit of money, an unimaginably terrifying amount of money. um, so now we're trapped in it just to try to basically win the lottery. To Isn't that what we're doing? Aren't we all trying to like rub the right lamp for the genie to pop out? And that's all being controlled by advertisers, who will then use our success to sell products to the people looking at us. It's terrifying what's happening, if I really think about it that way. But then what can we do to resist it? And that's why the resistance isn't there, I think, because we all need to try to get the genie lamp, or else we can't have a life. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm gonna Pop out. I'm over here now. Oh wait, do I even have the right thing on? No. Yes? No. Okay, nobody's in chat. That's what it is. Anyways, all right, I'm gonna start cleaning or tidying or what, I don't know. Start doing the thing. Thing time. Okay, so thoughts that I have about the whole situation. I think we need to, and okay, another point. Have you noticed that the advertisers are now intentionally making things weird because you get more engagement, and if you focus on not even like controversy, but like you become the center of attention by creating drama, where we could just say like, I don't have time for this. So I feel like advertisers are now also exploiting our time by making it so we have to drop everything we're doing because they just did something stupid. So I feel like I think advertisers are now motivated to do something stupid and just insult us even more. Like I don't see this ending well, but I also don't see us having a chance to do anything while this is the problem. Like I'm even describing the problem right now and not getting to do other things. Granted, like this is why I like being a musician, is like I can go talk about this in music, and that's what I could do to contribute, but like I just feel hijacked by what ultimately leads to me being pressured to buy a product or to sell a product. And that sort of is demotivating because it's like, well, I don't know if I do want to succeed if it's just going to be about finding people who haven't bought something yet and making them buy something that they definitely don't need and don't know if they'll even like, and if they don't like, there's no recourse. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're so stuck in this. And it's not that like purchases are, it's, look, you can buy something and if you like it a lot, hooray. This is not a bad thing to buy things, period. But I am frustrated at how unhealthy these environments that we're stuck in all the time are. And it just like, it's very difficult to ignore them. And I'm at the point where all I want to do is ignore. And I don't know, I feel like I don't understand what we're doing. Anyways, is anybody there? Rowan, did you leave? That's okay. So yeah, so now I'm gonna put stuff away. I think it's sort of turning everybody into the kind of person that has to pay attention to the thing they like the absolute least, even though that's not who we want to be. But if you see something that seems to be just the worst, like one of the worst things that you can imagine, and it keeps getting shown to you, what are you supposed to do? Like, that's very difficult to ignore. So even as I think like, wow, that's incredibly manipulative and I'm upset that this exists like this, I also have no idea how to get out of this. It's just this constant stream of like, here's some things you won't like. Hi. Oh,
Hello,
you're the. What's up?
Steph.
Stuff.
Things.
Yay. All right, it's time to do the Housekeep-a-thon. Yeah. Anyways, I'm in a weird mental space like we all are constantly. Doodle-doo-doo.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I am definitely in a weird headspace.
Like, I have this weird thing where I'm like, what is real anymore? Like, we all know that every advertisement we see is somebody who's doing it because they need to pay bills, right? Like, everything is people trying to figure out how they can get their lifestyle into a comfortable place. So then,
Well,
isn't that true though? Or I mean, some people not, but like,
so
yeah.
you have to, you kind of, well, let me think. Like you have to sort of differentiate between like the marketer, the advertiser, and like the person that is like the proprietor of that product.
Proprietor,
right? Like
in that, can you define that a bit for me?
Proprietor, like the person creating the product, pushing the product, the owner of the product, whatever it is that they want to sell. Like, I think your description in that sort of area is accurate. That like they just want people to buy it. They made a thing they like. They want other people to have it, and the best way for them to pay their bills is for people to buy the thing that they made. Whereas advertising,
but think of how an ad
has
gets made.
This more, well, and that's what I'm getting at, is that like advertising on a broader scale doesn't have the sort of relationship to the client that something like graphic design would, for instance, right? If I get a client and they want me to make a logo or a brand, they're going to sort of ride my back the whole way. And anytime I do something they don't like, they're going to ask me to change it because it's their brand. They want it to reflect them. Advertising is not that. It can be that, and it's not successful. I'm sure there are exceptions where somebody does something that's a representation of them and it happens to be successful. But advertising is a rigorous practice of demographic targeting.
Right, but okay, let me go back for okay, let me pinpoint who I'm talking about. So the demographics that they are targeting are models. So they hire models who represent the demographic they're targeting, and those models have to do it because those models are not in a high enough class to not have to do that. Right? So then
but models are just actors following a director.
Right, but those actors, see, if they didn't have any actors, then you couldn't advertise hardly anything with this like illusion. So we have two kinds of actors. We have the ones that are social media influencers that get sent shit for free a lot of times because it's worth it to the company. And then you have professional models who are doing, acting in commercials and also all the photos, right? Like all the print stuff and stuff that are images. So those are all people who really exist, right? But so those ones are not okay. So you have the people. Let me start this over. I don't have a sense of how people are really doing
that advertising outside of sort of a local level, because that's different, has the entire landscape of it has changed dramatically with the rise of Hollywood. the overwhelming majority of like large brand advertising is done by Hollywood celebrities.
But the overwhelming number of ads are not. Like, if you just look through your junk mail, that's a whole bunch of actors that are no-name people, like grinning and smiling and walking down a beach or whatever they're trying to sell you. So like
Sure.
most images are like, I don't know how many people do that kind of work, but it has to be a huge number. And then on top of that, now we also have people basically becoming a version of that by making themselves as attractive as possible to advertisers, like basically saying like, hey, I'm not a model or professional actor, so that's, you don't have to worry about unions or anything. You don't have to worry about me very much, but I have a huge audience, and so basically when we put ourselves on social media, we're putting ourselves out for a bidding war with
Yeah.
people that want to advertise a product. So like that means that everything is getting more and more warped and confusing. Like, I don't know how I'm really doing relative to my peers. And I realize that, like, in terms of class, like, this is a rags to riches thing that we're all getting sucked up in. Like, but it's not real. Like, the rags to riches, your riches is to become a walking billboard to the
And
highest bidder.
yeah. Outside of starting a business, that's sort of how it's been for a really long time.
Yeah, but it's not okay.
Like branding deals and like becoming um like a vehicle for marketing
Yeah, but
has like for decades been like the way to be to like just make a ton of money doing whatever it is that you do.
right, but we are now, this is what's different though, is like regular people, kids, just regular people, as soon as you go on the internet, it's basically telling you like the only way for you to really get enough money to live is to randomly go viral as something that can sell products. That's new. Like before,
Yeah.
if you wanted to be a celebrity, it was because people would
Well,
think you're cool and you're doing something
well, and
cool.
what's funny about that is that like there was an entire probably like 10 to 15 year period where that was like socially unacceptable, right? Like there was a time during sort of the viral age of the internet, um, really only up until maybe the last 7 or 8 years, that like being a sellout was heavily frowned upon. That like taking sponsorship deals, doing advertising in your content was like heavily frowned upon and would be called out and ridiculed. You would lose viewership. You would lose your like a part of your audience, because you were a sellout. And now it is understood as just sort of a part of the gig.
Well, it is the gig. Like basically you do
Well,
that, and then, well, hear me out here. You do that, and then some people are interested in what you're actually making. And the only way for you to be big enough to find the people that actually like what you're actually making is to have a corporate sponsorship that then promotes you. You're basically promoting a product, and by promoting a product, you might
I
find people that actually care about you.
I don't think that's the order that it goes in. Like, because how are you going to get a corporate sponsorship without pre-existing viewers?
Well, that's the whole point, is like you find people that are interested in what you're doing up to a certain point, and then you enter the bidding war, and you're trying to get big enough that they see potential in you, and then they boost you up. So then you get virality can happen randomly, and they'll jump on it, and they'll make you even more viral and even bigger. So however you manage to get like your first bump, then you have to try to make it even bigger and make yourself look really attractive. Like,
I I do think I would recommend moving away from the term viral in this case,
well,
because that is something different,
how
at
okay.
least from my perspective, because viral is like something that sort of uncharacteristically gets an unbelievable amount of attention
Let
in a
me start
short
this
amount of
over.
time.
So
Whereas, like, as an example that I would use as like someone that is a content creator that has made it their full-time job, doing something that is like quality representation of their skills as an artist is like clay sculpting. Dude's got like 500,000 subscribers. He does well enough, and maybe every 5 videos is actually sponsored. So like I just think it's important to sort of step back from the idea of virality online and remember that this is just an entire landscape of people's genuine sort of um, creativity. Like
okay, but
there
if
are a lot of people that are very successful on these platforms because they just consistently did the thing that they like to do and put it on the internet and slowly accumulated enough
I don't know if that's
people.
true. I don't know if I think at some point you need to have an algorithm do you a solid. I don't think that people gradually make their way up. I think they get a spike and then another spike. Like you get at some point the spike is just because there's too many people for this to be otherwise. Like nobody is out here like really telling we don't when was the last time like besides just now like, do you tell other people about the people that you watch typically? Probably not.
I mean, I do, but like I do think I'm the outlier. I
Yeah,
don't think
and
most people talk about which is, I mean, I don't know, because I'm still of the mind that like word of mouth is still the single best form of advertising that there is.
I
Um,
disagree with that. I think word of mouth does almost nothing, and I think that I question that. I seriously question that. Like I don't think that we really have any choice over what is presented to us other than if a bunch of people click on it because it's like so I instead of word of mouth, I think we tend to have needs that arise at the same time because we're in the same environment. And then some of us start to reach the same conclusion of what we want next. And then we're more likely to click on it. Not because we talk to each other about it, but just because we're in the same environment and we're starting to have our responses be, being
I
overlapping
do
enough.
also I do want to highlight here that we are not going to have like the lived perspective to be able to comment on that as accurately as possible, because it is my understanding that the average person spends most of their time with their friends doing exactly that, talking about the things that they like to spend their time alone doing, watching videos, movies, playing games. They tell each other about the things that they like, presumably so that they can do them together and so they can talk about them together. We don't really do that because that's not how our friendship functions.
Well, but even still, I'm still going to argue that like it's always going to be faster for people to just respond without feedback than to respond after feedback, and it's better for us to like have our own response guide our actions than constantly checking in with other people, which even like neurotypical people don't check in that with each other that much. Like it's more than us, yeah, for sure, but I don't think that drives behaviors so much as like the environment is being impacted by their individual choices, and now they're in the same environment together, and then we are in that environment too, and our conversations can start to overlap when we start having some of the same problems. But we didn't like realize we have the same problems by talking to each other. We just had the problem in the environment, and then eventually you start to have the courage to talk about it, because I think it's hard to talk about when you're having the problem in the environment, because if you're the only one, you feel like you're maybe just broken or defective. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, that's something I want to
So
pinpoint.
and I'm not trying to argue against the power of the algorithm. Like,
Mhm.
we are definitely living in a time where what we are presented with as far as like products and entertainment are less of a choice of our own than it ever has been. But there is data that shows that for most of modern history, word of mouth is the most successful form of advertising.
Yeah.
If you can get people talking about your product, it will spread
So
in terms of consumption
Yeah.
faster than anything else.
But-
and I do think when you were talking about advertising being weird, I do think that it's kind of operating on two axes in that it is trying to go viral. They want to be dramatic or controversial in a way that's going to make people that's going to make it go viral. It's going to pick up a lot of attention, and so the algorithm is going to show it to more people, but also it's going to get people talking about it. I don't know why this popped up in my head the other day, but I was thinking about, and you might not remember this, but like 4 or 5 years ago, the Planters peanuts killed the peanut guy. Like, literally killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And replaced him with Baby Nut. And it was like a tiny little baby version of the Planters peanut guy. And it was just like the most ridiculously dumb advertisement. Like, it wasn't about eating. It was this very weird sort of dramatic meta kind of thing. And I do remember everybody talking about it. And I just remember so many people talking about how dumb it was. And oftentimes in those conversations, someone else would bring up, like, yeah, but you're talking about it. And you're talking to your customers about it. People are coming in and oh, did you see that stupid advertisement? So now you've got all these different people talking about Planters peanuts. Somebody that you're talking to today is going to go to the store and buy peanuts.
So, but so the problem is, so people buy things ironically is the issue. So what we're doing is
but the advertiser doesn't care if it's ironic.
but
they care if they have your money.
Yeah. But we need to start caring about this. Is kind of my argument. So basically,
I agree with that.
So what they're setting us up for is like, this is the opposing team. If you don't like here's something that these people don't like. If you don't like how they don't like it, buy this thing to show that you're on the other team. So we're running around with stupid, like, sports memorabilia of our dumb, made last second team that we're on now. So it's like team this, team that, and that's most of what's happening is like you're making a social statement to other people, thinking that you should because this seems like the only thing that people are talking about. So then you need to respond to it as well because you're a social animal. Like, we're basically hijacking this idea that when we observe society, it's helpful for us to give our 2 cents.
And I think the argument I'm making is that advertising has always been like that. That's not new.
Well,
it's just the way that it's functioning within this sort of structure where everything is so sort of short-lived.
It's not
that is changing the landscape. But like what you just described about how advertisers appeal to demographics, about picking teams and trying to appeal to what they think is going to make people invested in a product.
No, that's not what they're doing.
Have...
I don't think that's what it is. Like let me add I need to
clarify not like
this.
actually invested, but making them feel like they should be invested.
No,
like it's something they should be doing.
They don't care about the product. They don't care about the product.
Of course they don't care about the product. They've never cared about the product.
No, the people that they're selling it to.
That is literally the function of advertising.
No, the function of
advertising.
Hang on. Well, The function
Yes,
of
it is.
now you're arguing on something different. The function of advertising that I'm trying to talk about is not that. I'm saying there is something really different. If you look at ads, they were always aspirational, right? Like, you want to be like this person. This is a person you like. Now advertising is, this is a person that a bunch of people don't like. Now we're going to give them this thing. And if you don't like this person, having this
Can you give an
thing,
example?
uh,
Because that's I don't think I would. I mean, like, I have ad block, so like I don't see a lot of advertisements anymore. But like unless this has shifted very recently, I mean I don't like
so
I typically I still see advertising within the realm of like focusing on a product
so
being something that is desirable
okay.
for the person in the advertisement so that you can feel like you should want it too.
Mr. Peanut, let's go back to that example. So you have the
Sure.
Mr. Peanut. They kill Mr. Peanut. Everyone's like, wow, that's so stupid. And then somebody else says, wow, that's so stupid that you think it's stupid. I'm going to buy this just to piss you off. That's new.
Yeah, I mean it's not though. I'm sure I would buy that it has increased in frequency, but it is not a new advertising
No, but
tactic.
it's I think it's incredibly different because now we can show everybody, because we all have social media. Look, I did the thing you don't like, random strangers. You can be a random person, and it also can potentially get you eyeballs, which can potentially be monetized, by the way. So we're all motivated to show one another the things that we're doing that group of people don't like, because we just got fed up of having to see that person all the time. So what's advertised to us is the thing that we're most annoyed by. And then we start to get so pissed off that we start to do actions to show that we don't like those people publicly. And that's
So,
our purchasing.
yeah, so
That's weird. That's not.
it is weird, but like it's not that new, and it's also like not the primary
Well, then
mode of
how
advertising.
did people do it
It is
before?
one thing that is how did people advertise before,
No,
or how did they use
how did
this?
they use this thing that I'm describing specifically? How did they do that before, when you didn't have, it would be very hard to get media attention if you're just a nobody. Like, how would you do that? You'd have to be crazy to get
Um,
like media attention on you. You'd have to be out of your mind, over the top. Now you can just
so
be a
it
guy.
was usually in this case it was usually competitor products, because in competitor products there's usually brand loyalty. So it would present the other product and the person it's associated with, and position their product in opposition to that. And so that creates sort of a social cultural situation where people are buying things that they feel sort of associated with, and then sort of flaunting it at the people that they feel they are in opposition to.
But the people that you're in opposition to prior to the internet, how are you supposed to even be around them if you're already in opposition to them?
I mean, like public settings. I mean, like people that have that you're well, and that's like the thing about advertising to different groups, is that you're creating disagreements or highlighting disagreements within social groups. I guess that might be where it's shifted, is that it's creating more of a fissure between actual groups of people, creating more rigid lines of disagreement that people won't cross anymore.
Well, they didn't know they were
Because
there
like,
before. That's what I'm saying. Like,
well, they knew they were there, but it was about like Coke and Pepsi, and now it's
yeah,
about
but you didn't you
like,
I didn't know that much about people's preferences before. They just walked by me.
well, yeah, but you're autistic.
No, but I don't think other
That's
people.
why I brought up the fact that like the people that are not autistic talk about these random things with higher like degrees of frequency. They don't spend their time talking about these sort of internal focuses that we have because we have special interests. They will talk about anything, which is also why advertising exists the way that it has for so long, because subliminal sort of advertising is really good at getting people talking because they will just talk about the things that they see.
But the problem so I don't think people are happy though, because what's happening is like what I was watching that video on hijacking.
Well, of course they're not happy.
No. I mean, they know that they wanted to do something else today, right? So we've already talked a little bit about how like the internet hijacks you on outrage, right? So like there's been articles on that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think this is more pervasive because at the same time, you can be rewarded for freaking out. So one of the ways that you could find your magic genie that you get to rub and actually have money is to respond to a product, get really mad about it, and you could actually launch a career as some sort of weird commenter that has a large enough audience that you actually get money back.
Yeah,
So
I agree with that.
So that's what I'm talking about, is like this whole dynamic, and you can't really like getting a project that you want done is harder and harder and harder, because as soon as you step outside, you're getting bombarded by all of these really distasteful things that you don't like. You would never have had to see all of these things you don't like in this volume before now. Like every day, if you interact with the internet, you're going to see a whole bunch of shit you don't like, algorithm or not, because the things that people don't like are in this like this weird dynamic that I think is new. And then people are motivated to not to engage in it, and even people who are in traditional advertising, they're motivated to engage in it because this is how we get money now, is to make someone so pissed off that they go out and buy something that they don't even care about.
And to sort of bring it back to when I popped in, like the thing that I was trying to reference is that like the motivations of the advertisers have not changed. Like advertisement is not, and I certainly am generalizing. I'm sure that there are people within advertising that want to do it in a way that feels more fulfilling, but it's not like a noble profession. Its entire focus is how can we hijack people's attention to make them buy things. And that ranges from sort of the basic appealing to people's desires all the way up to trying to be as manipulative as possible. So I think that's maybe where I was getting stuck in this conversation, is that the landscape has changed, but advertisers are only doing this now because it's what is selling products.
Right.
It is what is getting people to spend money in droves. And however that landscape changes, they will adapt to that landscape to ensure that they are successfully advertising to as many consumers as possible.
But the problem is they're actually driving people away from being able to be consumers. So what's happening is the less you're able to go from point A to point B without getting distracted and sidetracked, the less you're able to earn an income. And then you're creating this loop where then the only way for you to get that quick income with all this time wasted is to try to become one of these people that sells products by pissing people off. So you have to become an influencer in order to get out of this trap of you being sidetracked so many days in a row that you haven't filled any products, fulfilled any processes and made anything. So like we're not able to make anything. So they're actually like reducing the number of consumers.
I guess I would question that. Not in any like I'm questioning your approach to it necessarily, just that like I'd be very curious to see, and I don't expect that there necessarily is, but I'd be very curious to see data on that about how much is the way that media is being sort of targeted at people is genuinely reducing sort of traditional productivity. Like, are people very genuinely making, less income because their productivity is suffering due to all of this?
Let's go deeper than productivity. So they don't have any, it's not even just productivity, right? Like they're not developing their ideas. Every single day they're getting sidetracked. That's not even just productivity. These are people who are stagnating completely.
Let me back it up.
They can't even be productive.
What demographic of people are you talking about getting sidetracked?
Everyone.
Because the average person goes to work, does their 40 hours and comes home. right? So that's where their income is coming from. They're not making money or having any sort of, they're like, if what you're talking about is not affecting people's productivity at their day job and keeping them from being able to do what is providing them with income, then it's not going to reduce their participation as a consumer. Like for creators that don't work a day job that are being sidetracked by this,
So how are
to
you?
the point where genuinely
Hold on.
less man hours focused on their projects during the day is less income, sure.
But I
But
think
like
that
if you
is
go to an
everybody.
office and you're getting a salary sort of regardless of your productivity until your productivity is so low that you're fired, like it's not going to be affecting
But
their
but
productivity, and you would
I
have to
disagree.
demonstrate that it is to that degree.
I
But
but no
salary is
no no
salary.
no 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 no. Listen. So if you're in any industry whatsoever, you're going to have to be able to keep up with the trends and keep educating yourself, because everything we're doing right now is on a technological wave that's getting more and more complicated. You cannot do the same job that you did 10 years ago. You have to be able to adapt. And what does that take? Focus, time. It takes you to be not stagnated. You do have to learn as you go. You have to be able to think about your job and then think about how it's going to transform next month, the month after that, because this is happening across basically everything. Like there's maybe a few jobs where this isn't the case, but those ones will be replaced by robots. So like everything else, you have to be able to be adaptive, and this is getting in your way. You're going to interact with all of these things, and it's going to be in your mind. It's going to be in your brain, occupying space. And like it's not even about affecting your performance. It's affecting your ability to like care enough about what you're doing to start innovating, or to like develop a new better way of doing it. You're not going to do that. Like that's what I'm saying. It's not about, because even for somebody who's doing a pretty basic job right now, we have all of these disruptive technologies that if you get in the ground floor and learn them now, you're going to be in a better place to be a consumer in the future. And nobody's able to do that if their nervous system is constantly getting bombarded by these negative sorts of like bombardments of terrible things that they don't like. It's not going to set you up for that. You can't focus. And the advertisers will be like, no, you really do need to pay attention to this. You really do need to have an opinion on this. So even when you say, no, I'm not going to, by the 15th time, you start to give in and say, like, I guess I have to have an opinion on this, instead of doing something about your actual life. Like you're basically living in this like weird commercial break all the time.
Well, hmm.
Like a lot of my response is like, I just want to be left alone. Like it's not like people
Sure. Yeah, same.
and
Like I'm
we're not.
definitely not arguing for like advertisers having free reign to your attention.
No, but the way that they're
Um,
using it is the problem, and I don't think they're that smart, because this is really stupid long run,
no,
where
it's
it's like,
just it's all data analysis.
yes, it is.
It's running advertisements, seeing how well it does, and then tweaking the numbers and just doing that in infinite iterations until you are hitting your marks as successfully as possible.
And they're going to start advertising only to the richest people as more people drop out of the middle class and into a lower and lower class, because we're not able to do anything with our lives. It's not that we're not productive, we're going to stagnate and stagnate. A lot of people with mental illnesses and disabilities have been canaries in coal mines for a long time, but it's going to get even worse for them. So what you're going to start seeing is the advertisements are going to be even creepier and more dystopian, in my opinion, because you're going to have people that are models and actors and stuff, and they're nowhere near that class now. They're getting further and further and further away from it. And we're just creating whatever a very, very rich class of people wants to see, who have arguably shouldn't even have that money. So we're gonna be like really shitty entertainment for very, very rich people at some point, and it's gonna be like bad. Like at some point, like that can't. People are gonna have to say no to that, and then say like, you've wasted my life. Like you wasted my life to sell products until I didn't have a life and I couldn't buy products, and then you just sold to the class above me using me. That's what's so
Yeah.
gross about it.
Well, and I guess just like an interesting commentary to sort of bring up here is that um, if we're sort of highlighting the sort of advertising that's happening on an influencer level. Well, shit. I was gonna say that, but then like I sort of realized that like I don't pay attention to influencers, and I don't know if the types of people that I pay attention to that do get sponsorship deals could be classified as influencers. But I'll go ahead and finish the thought anyway. I was going to say that like a lot of the products that are that people are being are receiving sponsorships from are sort of lower to middle class products anyway. These aren't like really high class products for the most part, like
Yeah.
I think we've all seen 1,000 advertisement for Raycon. Raycon are cheap, affordable, reasonably like decent quality earbuds,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not being marketed to the high class. They're
But they're being
specifically
sold
intended to appeal to people
enriches
that
the
don't
high
have a lot of
class.
money but still want something that works.
The people that have stocks in Raycon, though, that's who actually benefits, not the people buying Raycon. The people buying Raycon are enriching the pockets of the people that are directly involved in the buying and selling of Raycon. And then eventually, I'm telling you that the ads are going to start to cater to the class just below Raycon, not to us, because we're not going to have enough money for it to be worth it. Like this is what I'm saying. Like we have a limited amount of time to do anything during our day, right? And we're not making enough money to be consumers for much longer, is what I'm arguing.
Well, and I do feel inclined here to interject that like I don't think that sort of an accelerationist perspective here is it's going to be a particularly fruitful one in that like, oh, we'll just let it eat itself. But like I don't want to like reestablish consumer culture, right? Like I don't want to like sort of go back to the way that sort of consumer culture was before sort of influencers and stuff, but at the rate that we are now consuming things.
So
I don't think that's a good solution necessarily.
No, but now first off, like if you only had to consume the things that you actually wanted to consume, you could probably stay more focused because those might be things that allow you to get to other goals, and you're just basically not living a stagnated life. If you're starting to live a stagnated life, ultimately you're not going to be an economically successful person. Like you can't, those things don't go together. And this is what I'm saying. The trap is that, and this is new, and this is something that needs to be addressed, is that people get in that situation, and then the only way out is to try to potentially become an influencer. And then you start to tear yourself apart and pick out what could go quote unquote viral, what's outrageous about you, what's weird about you, what's trendy about you. You have to do weird things to get attention all of a sudden, and that's just very bizarre. Like my argument for the most part is that that is very strange, and that it's not going to be healthy for anybody. It's already not, and it's very scary that that's where we're at. Like you can't focus. Like even if you're like, I'm going to ignore the whole thing, okay, well, you also need to use the internet because there's all these powerful things in technology, but the ads are so pervasive, you're going to get, again, by the 15th time that it taps on your shoulder, you're going to be like, fine, what? Like it's that problem that I'm concerned with.
Yeah, and this doesn't solve the problem by and large, but the next time I'm at your house, I'm going to install ad block onto your browser.
Sure. Does that work?
Yeah. Yeah, your YouTube videos won't have ads. You won't get banner ads on websites and stuff.
But I'll still have to worry about the press.
There are like some programmers are getting better about programming their websites in ways that get around ad block. But at the same time, the programmers that run ad block are sort of it's a back and forth. But it will shield you from being forced to interact with all of these advertisements every single time you use the internet.
What I need, because for me, it's mostly not ads. Like I have YouTube, whatever, so I don't see ads, right? I already pay for YouTube, so I don't see ads. Okay.
Oh,
So
okay. I didn't know that.
yeah, that's not what I'm even talking about. What I'm talking about is, first of all, at least I don't use Twitter, thank God. But like all what I want to block on is all news articles, all reporting, all blogs that mention a product. That's what I want to block on. I don't want to hear about their fucking weirdo drama that they're starting. I don't want to hear about it because
Yeah.
that's
Well,
the
and that
problem.
is, yeah. Well, and that is, I would probably argue at this point an unavoidable problem.
But you need
Um,
to. We're gonna go
oh,
crazy. like
no,
we're
no, no, no. I'm not saying we shouldn't fix it. I'm saying that
yeah.
like I'm not sure that you can interact with news aggregation and also avoid what you're talking about
Why not?
at this
Like
current time. Like
there
because I don't think anybody's doing that. I think that's just what the landscape is.
So there has to be news that doesn't involve a product, and we are about to have AI. Why can't we have AI that filters it out completely, and then you don't have to
I'm
learn
not,
about
yeah, I'm
any?
not
Yeah,
saying it can,
yeah,
like nothing can ever be done about it.
right.
It's just that's how people make money now. Like I think
Well, it's
and you know
unethical and
I'm
it's
sort of
horrible.
conceding and coming around on the points that you're making that
hmm
um like this is sort of all consuming that like the internet as a free service has always been driven by advertisement, right? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, the the majority of news aggregation, like they make money by selling ad space.
Yeah, those I
So
don't even
if
have a
this is the
problem with.
landscape, well, this is what I'm saying is that if this is the landscape of advertisement, anywhere you go where you're going to have to see ads being sold on their online space, you're going to see that kind of stuff. And
Well,
it's getting to the point where it is embedded into sort of the presentation of their work
there's two different kinds of
entirely.
ads, is what I'm suggesting. I think that's what I need to
Right,
get
you're
back.
saying that there's like ad space and then there's like literally like in the text of what you're reading is an ad
A,
that like they've embedded it into their article.
a product has made an event to happen. A product has forced an event to happen
I
that
see
they
what you're
know
saying.
people will talk
They're
about.
reporting on the thing.
Yes. So I don't mind
Yeah,
that targeted ads that I get. They're fine. I just look at some
yeah,
fun clothes
that's
every
fair.
month maybe, and then I'm good.
Yeah,
Those
that's
are
fair.
not a
That's fair.
problem. I don't have a problem with any of those ads. The problem that I have is this new form of advertisement, and then it's starting to affect ads because now I'm realizing, oh, these I can't afford any of this stuff. Who are they advertising to?
Yeah, and something to consider as well that like um it's sort of becoming an amalgamated kind of thing. That a lot of these news aggregates that are running stories on this ad or whatever, like there is probably a pretty solid number of them that are getting kickbacks from the product. It's not just natural reporting
That's
on
gross.
this thing that went viral. It's
Yeah.
that they were contacted by that company or they already had a pre-existing relationship with that company and you know the deal is if you report on this we'll give you money,
hmm
right? And this is I was going to bring up a couple minutes ago that like finding quality products in a um, like in a realm that you're not familiar with is almost impossible these days because every single website that is doing product reviews, you know, your the best headphones of 2023, like they have an affiliate link for all of them, and most often than not, they also just have a sponsorship deal with every single one of them that they reviewed. Like it's just become so integrated in that way that it can be really hard to actually figure out when any kind of reporting is honest and not in cahoots with the thing that they're reporting about.
And the issue that I have with all of this is that I think that okay, too many things that I'm hearing about actually have to involve a product and the relationship between people and a product, right? I don't want to know about that anymore. And that is being reported as news. Even think about it this way. Even the school shootings is ultimately about the product of guns. So this is very difficult to live like this. Like that's what I'm suggesting. And to have a block on, to just get a break from the news being products warring with each other.
Well, and another point that I think is worth, like, because you are absolutely correct. But like news, and it does almost feel like this is directly a product of free internet space sort of being driven by advertisement. Because typically I generally agree with you. Like when I do get targeted ads, they're fine.
They're fine.
You know, like Google does a good job of tracking my activity and trying to sell me things I actually want. But like, I see the most just like non stories being reported on in like news websites will report on literally anything, and not just anything. I shouldn't even say anything. I should say everything. Every single thing that they think will bring attention to their website, they will run an article on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the more salacious it is, the more likely they are to run a story on it, unless it directly conflicts with sort of their like business philosophy about what kind of news
and
they do.
Underneath that, I'm suggesting there's been this other system that's been growing, maybe parasitically in some ways, but it's its own thing that you have to separate, where everything is product placement. So like maybe we need to develop some sort of like media literacy or critique that says like, okay, find all the products. What in this news article, how many products are there, and how and how many?
Go ahead.
Sorry, it's fine. And how many of these products are actually mega corporations that manufacture and sell a ridiculous array of things and have all these brand deals between themselves. So like how much of what you're consuming is product placement, and that could maybe give you a way to ignore it, because this is the problem is right now we're like, oh, is this what the world is? I guess I have to do something about it. And you don't do what you were going to do. You start to stagnate because you think that this is what you need to respond to, when really it's just product placement. And and if you knew that, it's like, why am I finding out about these products again? Why am I getting daily updates on what these products are doing in society? What am I going to do? Am I going to burn down the plant? There is no plant. Like, so this is what I'm arguing for, is that we need some way to talk to ourselves about this, because nobody planned this. I refuse to believe that people are that malicious or smart. Number one, that they're that smart.
I agree. Absolutely.
But what's happened to us is we need some way to be, it's not productive. We need some way to choose what our goals are for today. And I think this secondary way of advertising that's slowly evolved, you have to say like, this isn't about the people, this is about the products. And if you can count the number of products in it and you're hitting like 5, 10, and if you actually did the research, you'd be like, oh, that's Disney Corporation, oh, that's ConAgra, oh, that, you see what I'm saying? You'll be like, oh wow, like, why am I talking about these people again, these giant mega corporations again? How much of my life and how much of what is being bombarded into me is actually conversations about products?
And it's probably a staggering number.
Exit Plan asks, don't they have to disclose it's sponsored by law? I don't know how that part works. I mean, for the most part though, it's like even in a media setting, the point is that you don't even have to be sponsored. Like, as soon as the world revolves around the comings and goings of what is essentially a product interacting with society, you no longer hear about society. You no longer hear about like, oh, this person did something really amazing. You hear about, here's how this product impacted this group of people. They're mad. Oh, are you mad that they're mad? Maybe buy the product.
And I know that some like platforms have policies about it, right? Like you can get like removed from Instagram for running a sponsored post without tagging it as sponsored. But I don't know if there are any explicit laws about it. And if there are, I don't know how rigorous they are. Right? Like, it makes me think of like safety regulation stuff where it's like, this thing must be displayed in a conspicuous location. And I have worked in countless locations where it was not displayed conspicuously, and many of the employees didn't even know it existed. And so if there are laws about that, I wouldn't even really be that surprised if like some of these news websites that are running these ads or articles as ads or ads as articles had like a disclaimer on some part of their like about section, and because it's displayed there, they don't have to list it in every article. Something like that. Like, I don't know. That's just sort of an idea that I could see being legitimate if it were true. But I was going to follow up by saying that like the sort of reporting on anything and everything, that lines up with what you were saying about sort of these corporate sponsorships in both directions, right? If they're not corporate sponsorships, because they have to be disclosed as such, then it could be phishing for sponsorships, right? Maybe if we publish this article and it gets a lot of attention, the company will reach out to us to do a sponsorship deal. And if it is already sponsored, well, then they already got paid. They just got to run the article. And if they're getting tons and tons of sponsorships, you know, if they get 12 sponsorships that they have to run a day, well, that's 12 articles they have to post a day. So they have to find 12 things that need to be written about, whether it's significant or not, because they have to find a way to publish an article about the product that is sponsoring them.
Well, and it's like the way that it's working currently is again, like the stupidity is always going to be what I highlight, not maliciousness. It's like, I think that people just want to write an article that, let me start this over. They want to read an article that's going to get read a lot, and this environment is going to make sure that those articles get read a lot for multiple reasons, which I, again, don't think are malicious. I think they're just kind of like organically, parasitically been growing underneath until what I'm trying to pinpoint the problem is, so that we could all do something about it in the meanwhiles, is to know that, like, is this a story about the world, or is this actually a story about products that people buy?
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't have to get sidetracked by that. And then, like, that's sort of my argument at this point, is that there's regular ads, they're fine. They're usually just like, here's a happy thing, boop, boop, bop. And you're like, all right, sure, maybe I'll buy that next month. And you can save up and you can budget and all that stuff. This other thing is products screaming at you that they are the most important thing on the planet, so that you can't fucking think. Sorry, so that you cannot think, and that you're stuck wondering how you're going to fix this giant problem that's overwhelming you because you can't get away from it because it keeps being written about, and you think you're reading about people. You think you're reading about ideas. You think you're reading about current events or your society, but what you're actually reading about is products inserting themselves into life and driving these insane interactions.
Well, and something that comes to mind about this that I think is interesting, and this might actually be useful information in this regard, is that, like, I don't think it was always like this. I think it was, like, to some degree, it was literally just, we have ad space, we need clicks. But I think that this can be how clickbait functions. It's a way to trap you into reading about a product. You know, it'll be the like, you won't believe this, and then, you know, you get halfway down the list, and maybe you do realize, maybe you don't realize that, you know, 4 of the last 5 like bullet points were about the same product.
Well, it's like with the question that I have is like, would this event have occurred if some manufacturer or some product, some people involved in a product didn't go out of their way to make this event occur? Did they insert themselves into people's lives? And that's where I'm at. It's like, so that's the problem that I want to talk about, so then we can have some power to say no to it. Because right now it looks like it's society. It looks like it's what's happening today. So we're responding to it like it is what's happening today, and we're getting sidetracked every single day. And if you watch it long enough, you're like, this doesn't have any rhyme or reason to it. Why? And then I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, because it's selling shit to us. Because it's products changing how we're thinking for the day and making us afraid, certainly, but also concerned. We're like, wow, people are behaving crazy. And they just report on people behaving crazy in response to artificial problems created by products.
Yes. And I
that we won't be able to afford if we don't break out of this, is what I'm saying. Like, we won't. Yeah. We're losing our ability to make the things we want to make out of our lives, which is how you will have some sort of economic stability, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if it's a better system, which we currently don't have. But that's another problem.
But I mean, like,
discussion.
I think it's reasonable and fair to operate on the sort of position that as we improve this one thing, hopefully we will work and other people will work to continue improving other things, so that if this one thing does improve, it can exist within a better system. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, I was just going to say that, like, I do think that I'm generally going to be on the side of, like, this hasn't been inserted into our lives. I think it just, I don't know the cultural history of how this developed well enough to be able to say this is how it developed.
I don't know. I don't think anyone knows that yet.
No, probably not. But I am definitely in the camp of it happened organically.
Yes.
That it was just something that developed over time as a product of pre-existing advertisements practices with how the sort of culture online
I think this is where I think, like, this is why I think it's like a thing underneath it. I think it's possibly more
instead of practices, let me say philosophy. Advertising philosophy.
I don't think there's, like, maybe there's a couple weirdo advertiser campaigners that are, like, super malicious and are realizing this connection and are exploiting it. But in general, I think what this is coming from is, like, shareholders and more the corporate side of things, like the corporate entities and the fact that they exist as, like, almost like pseudo people in our society. So, like, the amount of power that a corporation has to make something become news is kind of ridiculous. So, like, that I think isn't actually a targeted advertisement plan. I think it's just, like, corporations realizing they have power and control to change what's written about today and what people have to read today. And I think that comes from more of an idea that they're just trying to stay relevant. I don't think they're really advertising at that point. I think they were trying to do something like be the big, like, a hierarchy. I think they're just trying to be king of the hill. I think it was just like a weird king of the hill game between all of these companies and corporations just amongst each other. I think they're just competing with each other to be the most seen for no fucking reason. Like, I think
and, well, it's the money disease. It is absolutely worth noting within the context of this conversation that the media companies that in many cases make the products, but host the platforms that are advertising the products, or the media that the products are being advertised within, are, like, massive media conglomerates. And it stands to reason that they would have contacts and connections. Or literal ownership over.
Well, they probably know each other. They go to some banquet together, that sort of stuff. I'm sure. But like what I want is us to not have to know all of the widgets and wadgets and like comings and goings of that system, because I don't think that system even knows what it did. Right? So it
Sure.
shouldn't be necessary for us, because that again is going to be like a huge sidetrack. But what we need to be able to do is say like, that's what that is. This is a new phenomenon that I'm going to isolate and then be able to ignore or decide this is not for me.
I think it's probably a reasonable hypothesis to say that all of this developed as as a product of the sort of neurotic, directionless control that a very small handful of extremely rich men had. It all developed sort of over the course of a time where media control did not change hands. So, like, I don't think it's this sort of malicious master plan to manipulate the media so much as it's extremely rich people already had control of the media.
Yes.
Just from like a majority perspective. And so that media developed in relation to whatever nonsense they decided to feed into it.
What they pay attention
to, or
there's
what,
stuff they can't pay attention to because it's not in their lives. They won't pay attention to it because it's not there for them. It doesn't exist. And that's what I'm saying is like, we're learning about the weird musings of like corporations and all of these boards of directors and investors and people with like nepotistic money. We're learning about what they want to think about with their stupid company, which to them I'm sure is very, very important. Yeah, great, cool, good for you. I don't want to know about your stupid company. Why am I learning about your stupid company and it's being presented as if this is actually the drama of my life and has nothing to do with me? And I can't really influence it either. I need to work on, if any influence I'm going to have, positive or negative, in my society is going to come from my own ideas developing over time. And this is sidetracking people every single day.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this is sort of a different axis that is related, that like we need to repeal Citizens United.
Yeah.
Corporations should not be treated as people. But the reason I bring that up is that I would wonder, because that was quite a while ago, that was decades ago, I would wonder if sort of economically corporations being treated as people has contributed to sort of a cultural shift of viewing like corporate entities as sort of this person-like entity that has a personality and like personal ongoings in their life and so forth.
They're the Borg, and if they like you, then you can be assimilated and you'll be part of that particular Borg hive, and people will know you as having the qualities that that Borg hive has.
The shudder.
And the problem with that is that people aren't cultivating their actual qualities because they don't have any time, because they're getting sidetracked. So then we have people who look extremely underdeveloped being presented in front of a huge variety of people's eyeballs, including children. And we're now not getting role models of people that actually like make something of themselves and what that actually looks like. And it's not buying a product that makes you make something of yourself. It is not that. It is innovation, potentially something that helps people can be monetized, like books. You can sell books, but like what I'm trying to get at here is that this system needs to be analyzed only so far as you can say no to it, and then start to build things and potentially even share them online, because that's the only way to really show it to people. But like, this is sort of where I'm at with it. Like, I'd like some of obviously what I've been saying today is me like working it out in real time, but the other part of it is like, I just want this to get resolved quickly so that I don't get trapped in this anymore, and people that I'm working with don't get trapped in it, because it's people are suffering because of this. And it doesn't even really have a strong name to it, but it's just this idea of like, you turn on the computer, you turn on your phone, you look at your phone, and eventually over the course of just one day, one of these things is going to get at you, and it's ultimately going to be something that's created by a product. that's interacting with society in a way that we don't have control over and we feel powerless to do anything about. And that's not good to have to think about all the time, even if it's still happening. You can't think about it every single day. Like, you can't think about gun violence every single day because we can't do anything about it right now. And if I said instead, oh, there's a product here, that's why this is happening, this is why it's presented the way it is every single day and nothing happens, because somebody's selling a product that if it stops getting sold, this news would stop, but that product would be gone, right? So we're trapped in this like dysfunctional relationship with all of these products that are creating horrible effects that we're afraid of and hate, and then we're commenting on it, and then somebody will think we're stupid for hating that, and then they'll go out and buy the product. So you'll get some dumbass walking by my channel if I was bigger, being like, now I'm gonna buy a gun. Like, that's what we're doing. It's really bad.
And I am inclined to attribute some amount of this to sort of the advent of social media. Because I think the sort of at the ground level, the type of behavior that has helped guide what we're talking about in the direction that it went is the type of behavior that became so common on social media. And like, I feel like I probably don't have to interact with this sort of thing as much as the average person does, because I'm not on social media. And
but it's the news too is the problem.
And I'm very ow, that's really hot. Sorry.
Okay.
I just took out the trash, and I'm washing my hands, and recently the hot water in our apartment has become searing hot.
Oh, okay.
And I haven't adjusted yet. So I will turn the hot water on all the way and then burn my hand. Yeah, just because I haven't gotten used to the hot water being that hot anymore.
That makes sense.
So I'm also extremely particular about any other website that I use online, right? So like I'm not shielded from it. I'm not immune to it. I still have to deal with this. But like, as far as news goes, if I'm like very specifically going to a news aggregate, the two that I will use are BBC and Associated Press, because they're in my experience they're the tamest about that. I'm significantly less inclined to use news aggregates that haven't built that kind of image for themselves, where they are trying to be this sort of sterile news source. And I don't use any of the paid sites, but I would wonder if there's any sort of better freedom from that when you're actually paying for a newsletter through like WAPO or something.
Well, I doubt it very much. Like, at this point, I don't think so. Like, if anything, wouldn't they need those to get people in to pay in the first place? Wouldn't those be the articles that perform well to get people to sign up to read it? And then they do a trial membership, and then you forget to cancel your trial membership, and at least they get a couple months out of you before you realize, whoops.
you know, I said what I said, and then I go to check AP News, and at least 3 of the front 10 stories
Oh,
are about
sure.
corporations.
I have a good question. Okay.
Like one is
So,
about Bed Bath and Beyond, one is
mm,
about Bud Light, one is about Fox,
right.
and I'm sure that if I looked into it, there's probably something here that would, you know, indicate some kind of corporation
Yeah,
connection.
and then what I'm saying is like if I think probably the product thing you could get into the corporation and see how close it is to a corporation. But if you just look at it and be like how close is this really to a product? Then, you know, it, you should be able you should it shouldn't be that it should be much more abstract before you get to a product, you know what I mean? You should have to be doing some
Mm-hmm.
mental gymnastics and it's like right there. It really is about the product. Okay, there's a question and I want to answer it.
Okay.
Okay. Learning to make learning and doing fun. Do you have any tricks you use to practice singing or writing? Sorry, this is off subject. Let's change subject. Yeah. Tricks you use to make
Yeah,
practicing
I'm
fun.
good with that.
Yes, I do. So I always use episodic learning and memory, mental time travel. So what I would do is like create an imaginary scenario as to why you're practicing. So like create a whole storyline, and you can make it a goal that exists in the real world that's just gigantic and huge, like, oh, I'm practicing to perform at the Grammys. Okay, you could do that, or you can make something that's fantastical, like I'm practicing to like, and you have to pick your things that you're interested in, things that you like to imagine. So like I'm practicing to cause the village of squirrels, the squirrel people, to have the best festival ever. So like create a story for yourself that you can visualize in your head and think about like a movie, and then make it a scene in that movie, and that will make it much more fun to practice. Also look for repetition, so things that are repetitive, like especially things that use a muscle. So singing uses muscles, right? So think about like what muscles you're going to be using for this performance, and trying to make that action as clean as possible, as like accurate as possible. That's interesting for all humans. Me as an autistic person, autistic people just in general, practicing in that way is, I think, particularly satisfying because we like gravitate towards it as a soothing thing for a whole bunch of reasons. But yeah, look for something that's like a motor action that you can repeat and refine over and over again, and focus on that. And also like create like an imaginary world, like play, like think about creating a place, a time, a thing that you most like and would most like to be in, and then make your practice part of that world. I have a tool that I'm developing for this, by the way, but that's kind of neither here nor there for the time being. But that's how I've always done it. You can use real life events. You can use real people that have talked to you, or things that have happened, and then weave them into this intricate story. Don't worry, you won't lose touch with reality. You'll know that it's just a story. It won't matter that none of it's actually going to come true. It won't matter. And maybe something like this is what I used to say, something like this or better, right? So you're aiming for that something like this because that's what you know that you would like right now. But then as you do things, you'll discover something even better, and reality is better than your imagination. Yeah, you're welcome. I've done it forever with everything that's creative in my life, and then it's something that doesn't get talked about because it can sound, I think, strange, but um, it's been my only real strategy due to some of my problems with sequencing. Like I can't do steps in a row, like I can't do a to-do list. So this is another thing that we all use, but I tended to use it more intentionally, and now I'm going even further in that direction. So you can always switch back to just like making a list if you get stuck, and you can use lists. I can't. You can also switch between those two strategies at least. Those are the two that I'm aware of, and I use this one almost exclusively. And I can report that you don't have to worry about like getting your hopes up. You will be fully aware that this is separate from reality. You're just allowing yourself to play like when you're a kid. Why did we stop? Okay, how are we doing on time? All right, about half an hour. Alrighty, I'm gonna try to put clothes away because that hasn't happened in a minute.
I mean, 100% your call, but can we go a little bit longer today?
Yeah, because I started late.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Boop.
I did some dishes and took out some trash, and I'm just sitting down for a moment.
Yeah, and I'm behind where I really need to be, or I really do need to put clothes away. And I think also what's sort of getting to me is like occasionally I will get feedback from people on things that I'm sharing on social media or that I say to people in person where they're like, "Wow, you need to like tell people about this. This is a good point," or something to this effect, right? Like kind of a philosophical thing that's resonating with people. I'm like, "Yes, but you cannot sell a product with this." Is what I'm realizing. So it's like I don't know what that's going to look like in our time, like how to do that. I was trying to mess around with it and it's like, "Oh, this isn't happening automatically." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not selling something." Duh.
Yeah, and so there's that, but on top of that, I think we are in a place exacerbated by the pandemic where the economic future is so unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know enough about economics to say definitively, but it seems fair to make the assumption that any economist alive today that is quite sure what the economy is going to do in the next 5 to 10 years is lying or is to some degree delusional.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the advent of AI and just like generally automated systems, the sort of shift from like workplace dynamics and like the way that the internet has revolutionized people's control over their labor. Not that they have the control that is sold to the average person, but it has changed that dynamic. Like there's just so many new factors that have arisen in various degrees over the last 10 years
Mm-hmm.
that I cannot imagine accurately predicting what the economy is going to do by the end of this decade.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to, especially if you're actively like you are trying to figure out how to go forward while avoiding sort of the current economic status quo entirely, trying to understand what is going to work to make it, quote unquote, marketable. I don't know.
Well, and
I think
the
sort of in line
product
with
the
how we
product
generally think about things is like we just make it as good as it can be and figure it out from there. Like we just work on the thing to make it as great as possible, and then we can figure it out from there.
the product I'm interested in developing is like anybody who's able to use it, doing better because you're better. like
Yeah.
Okay, so what that looks like is working with your brain to let me think about this. To be able to get to these development things that need to happen, like these personal development things, landmarks that need to happen in a world that's changing at this really crazy pace and has lots of tools that could help you, but you can't access them because of this issue of the sidetracking is where I'm at. You go on to use the tool and then all of a sudden, Anheuser-Busch and whatever the hell is like, "Did you hear what we did?" And I'm like, I don't want to hear.
I could not care less.
Yeah, and we have to be able to say like, what you did was influence society and you're holding us hostage, similar to how Trump was holding us hostage.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't stop. They never said like, "What do you want? What do you want? Oh, you want more money? Okay, well, we aren't getting anything done, so pretty soon we won't be able to give you any money, and then you're going to advertise to the class above us, aren't you?" That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like it's like being held hostage. I'm like like if we could just give them like all $1 billion where they shut up for a year. You see what I'm saying? My knowledge on making money is limited to skills and trades. Well, and making money is like, this is my whole idea, is that we currently have some issue where you can't set a goal because you need the money to set the goal, but you can't get the money, so then you have to figure out a goal to set, but you can't set the goal because you need the money. Like, this is not good. And that's sort of like what I want to address. Yeah, positive feedback loop, that's terrible. Yeah, exactly. And we know this is going on. So then I'm like, okay, so why aren't we talking about it enough? And why aren't we collaborating on it? I'm like, oh, because we're yelling about products, because we're arguing about products, because our nervous system is imploding over products. And the way that they're getting us to buy shit, and again, I don't think it's malicious. I think it's stupid. I think it's stupidity that just kind of infected this new way of advertising, is my opinion, is my argument, is getting someone so pissed off that somebody else got pissed off that you buy the stupid product out of spite. Like, I would like numbers on spite purchases.
Start getting surveys at the store of just like, why did you buy this product?
Yeah, right.
Because my neighbor said it was stupid.
Yeah, I bet a lot of people would unironically, if you just put spite on there, hit spite. And they'd laugh too, because they're like, see, I did it. I've spited you.
I've spited you. Ha ha.
Ha ha. And then meanwhile, you haven't worked on anything that you care about for like 8 months.
Yeah. The potentially like beneficial upshot of that is that maybe people would have an awakening moment of being like, haha, I did the thing and to spite you. Wait, I have no way to show you the thing that I've done. I only have this spite in my mind. Why did I do this?
Right. And what were you planning to
do before that? Because that's the other sort of ridiculous side of this, is that unless you also have like a reasonable following and can shout from the rooftops and have hundreds of thousands or millions of people listen to it, like your spite purchase has no like public awareness. Like nobody's gonna know that you did it. So the reason you did it for has no value.
Unless if, again, now we're on the new treadmill, you do manage to get virality, or you say the right thing at the right time, and now you get rewarded temporarily because you've won the lottery. This is the lottery that we're entering into. So, okay, and the reason we need to enter in the lottery is because we have less and less resources, because we aren't able to get through a single day without being bombarded and sidetracked by this. So this is what I'm describing, and it's like it's so incredibly stupid that this can't be by design. Like, give me a break. Like, and I'm not hearing people describe it either. So, and even like I don't even know how you could, because then the articles are going to end up talking about products again anyway, because the people writing those articles are used to writing that way. So how do you get out of that? So what I'm saying is, like, you need to maybe start talking about this. This is where word of mouth would actually make sense, right? Okay, if anything that I'm saying makes sense, listen to it again, process it more, think about it, and then talk to people and be like, are we talking about people or products? Are the products making us talk about us, or talk about them? Sorry. Well, actually, yeah. Are the products making us talk about us in the context of them? Like, if you're having conversations,
are they convinced, like, or like inadvertently coaxing us into making our lives about their products?
Yeah, the beer war. Right. That's what I was talking about, Exit Plan. That's a very good example of it, but there'll be another example next week, won't there? Because the beer war won't last forever. And it's just like
and I was even like inclined to be like, what? There's a beer war? But you know what? I don't care. I could not care less. I don't drink beer. I don't care about beer.
I'm allergic to beer.
Yeah, right. There you go. Like, I don't care. I don't want anybody to tell me. I would like whatever it is to pass over me entirely, and I can go on living my life without knowing it ever happened.
Right, and you don't have to know it never happened because it didn't actually happen. It was artificially
Yeah,
created.
exactly.
It was
art of
artificially
yes.
created by products. Products inserting
Yep.
themselves into the lives of people and taking over their lives and wearing it like a skin suit. So this is my effort to start getting everybody that I know that might look at my shit to start talking about this in their own words, hopefully better than I have at some point. And then we have this conversation where it's just very crystal clear. It's like, what kind of thing is that? Oh, that's a product trying to make people have their lives run. That's a product like, you know, like zombie ants and shit. There's like a mold. That's a product being the mold that eats somebody's brain for a day and then uses them as like a weird marionette to make us think that this is life. It's not. It's a product creating problems and then reporting on it. So if a product is creating human drama, just we have to be able to detect that is actually being caused by a product. And
well, and your thing about the like zombie fungus actually made me think about something. I wonder if this is like a weird sort of like Uno reverse marketing thing, because there is a zombie game that is now a show where like the like a new form of the cordyceps fungus evolved to be able to infect humans, and it turns them into human mushroom zombies.
mm-hmm.
And now, any mention of the cordyceps, like as a real world thing, is in the minds of many, especially now that there's a very popular and successful TV show about it, is inherently linked with that TV show. And it almost feels like sort of a reverse of that, where like companies were like, how can we utilize that idea of like, and not necessarily within specifically in this context of the thing I'm talking about, like the show I'm talking about, but just this idea of like real world things can be in people's minds intrinsically linked to a product
Mm-hmm.
based on its popularity. So let's figure out a way to market that way, to use things in the real world to yes. sort of grab people's attention towards this product. And then over time it like evolved into, oh, well, let's just make people's lives about the product.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's take a moment here. Here's an exercise. How many products is your life about? let's break it down. Like, how many products actually do make a difference in your life? Like start listing them. I'll list them. Okay, so like there's definitely like big fan of t-shirts, but that's not exactly a centralized product. So I will buy t-shirts from anywhere. Eventually, I got like a sewing machine. I'm gonna learn how to sew, but I don't know shit about sewing, so it doesn't run my life very much at all. Some equipment around music, I'm concerned about that being good. So I have some music equipment, some definitely laptop, that sort of thing. I have concerns about AI because I want to make stuff out of that. Let's see, what other products should I actually know about in a given day? Okay, let's see. Slightly care about fashion, so I could see some fashion products coming up in my day.
Lightly care about fashion.
Yeah, well, I mean,
understatement of the year.
Yeah, I do, but you know, I don't like throw my money at that every day or anything like that. Food, I need to have food, but I also hacked nutrition, so I just need to be able to get macros. A couple medications, so some pharmaceuticals are important to me. Kind of pissed me off that I couldn't get one of them because they have that whole thing is messed up. A couple things that my doctor recommended that I supplement with, so some supplements because I talked to a doctor, and then therefore that product exists in my life. So I should know about those products. Rarely do I get to hear about what's going on in the world of supplements, weirdly enough, even though I care about them. Weird. Fidgets, love fidgets. Don't find out about new types of fidgets nearly fast enough. Love ballet. Not so bad seeing ballet stuff, but I don't have enough time because I keep getting sidetracked. So movement, dance, the brain, should be learning more about things that are advancements in the brain. I don't know why I would ever hear about anything other than that, because those are the products that actually run my life. And it's okay for products to be part of your life, but they should be the ones that are actually part of my life.
Yeah. First one that comes to mind, because I've been using it a lot, is Manta, my sleep mask.
Mm-hmm. I use that too. Good one.
That has had a profound change in my life. Has made like decompressing when I'm overwhelmed a lot easier. Computer parts, that's something I pay quite a bit of attention to, and is something I will have to continue to pay close attention to as I start to get good income again, because my computer is a good bit outdated, and in order to continue being able to make art at a increasingly complex level, I will need a better computer. Also, I'm an avid gamer. I don't think that part of my life is going anywhere, so I will need to. So I pay attention to that to the degree that it makes me comfortable to do so. And that also relates to the computer parts. Nanoblock is a very specific company of model building that I really like. So far, I haven't found anything that quite scratches the itch the way that Nanoblock does. So I'm always paying attention to the new models that they're coming out with. Similarly, pharmaceuticals. I stopped taking my meds because I think they're actually making things worse. So being able to pay attention to what's happening in the pharmaceutical industry and how it could help me to things that I should be doing. Book publishing.
Nice.
Art peripherals, things like tablets and new programs. I'd be really cool to see new art programs break out into the scene, because Photoshop has quite the stranglehold. And I quite like Photoshop, but I'm always interested in how new products can shake up an industry. And yeah, also fidgets. I super concur. Like, there's one brand that I know of that I can't even remember the name off the top of my head, but they're the ones that make that Shishibo cube that I got a while ago, the like puzzle cube thingy. That's like their whole jam, is they just make various like sort of unique fidget toys. They actually made a new cube piece that's similar to the Shishibo cube, but has is more focused on like movement flow. So it's meant to be easier to just sort of like fidget with, as opposed to the Shishibo cube being a little bit more deliberate. Also fashion.
Yeah. Also, I just thought both, like anyone who has pets, you have an interest in products for the well-being of your pet.
Yep. Camera stuff. At some point, I'll finally get my camera from where it is, and I'll be able to pay more attention to that. certainly I'm not going to go out of my way to buy peripherals for your camera.
Mm-hmm.
Nail polish. I'm always interested in sort of what's happening there. There are a couple of new brands that have popped up over the last few years that are really popular. Like Hollow Taco is one that's really popular these days, and I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but I see people that do, and I'm like, wow, I want to try that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, those are all products that I'm like comfortable with being a part of my life.
Right.
Manga, I'm always looking for new manga to read. That's an industry I enjoy paying attention to. I'm always excited when I get new ads, new emails and stuff about like that email or the manga that I sent in the chat this morning. I got that in an email.
Mm-hmm.
That's stuff that I want to see presented to me as like, this is consumer shit that is worth your time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good to list the stuff that you consume that is worth consuming.
That yes.
Because it can get to a point where it feels like any amount of consumption is just like detrimental.
No, it's
And
not.
that's not true.
You have goals, you're getting sidetracked by things that you don't even care about. Like, why do I have to know that people buy porn as often as I know that people buy porn? I don't buy porn. Why do I have to know about it? Could I not know about that for one single day, especially when that one's a more problematic industry? Oh, but it's a
Right.
problematic industry. Oh, then it's easier to write these kinds of articles on it, isn't it?
Right.
So it's like the things that we're hearing about are specific kinds of things, I would bet too. I bet there's only so many things that we're going to hear about. You know, like there's a couple.
And you know,
go ahead.
it's to sort of even try and make sense of that in a direction. Like, there could be a cultural discussion about like smut and sort of like adult media that could be shamelessly consumed in a way that is not detrimental to actual people's lives and contributing to a culture that is hurting people. That's a real thing that could exist.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't be that, like, that stuff
But
does
the reason
exist,
it doesn't, the reason
but
it
it's
doesn't
not
exist,
what gets the attention. It's not
but
what people really buy.
and why there are people that are buying like porn, all that stuff, because there's somebody like me who says like that's actually a problem, and then they'll be like, haha, you think it's a problem, I'm going to spite you and buy it, and I'm like, you're stupid.
Yeah.
This is the problem. Like, we're all stupid, by the way. So if I ever say that and you're like, hey, who do you think you are? I think I'm a stupid person. And I think that's just how people are. We're just kind of dumb. That's okay. Now that we've gotten over that, that's stupid. Yeah, investment for your trade. Yeah, exactly. And I think possibly, like, I like that, Kyle. Like, the things that we're doing that are investments are not us getting sidetracked, right? That's why we're happy talking about them and we're not mad about it and frustrated about it, because we know that they're not sidetracking us. That's where we were going when we got sidetracked. And we don't get to we don't get to use the things that we actually want to use. We don't get to like stay current on them or anything. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So I keep hearing about products that I don't care about because they're creating artificial problems that are social problems. The products are creating social problems, which I do care about because I care about people being okay. So they're basically exploiting basic human empathy, or what we call empathy, which is basically like the concern that other members of our species might be suffering, like the basic concern over the suffering of others, and saying like, oh no, some suffering is happening. I'm like, you caused it, and you'll cause a new one next week and a new one tomorrow. You've caused like 5,000 today, and that's what gets reported on. And then we have to see it because it's getting reported as if it is the events that people are interacting with, and it's not. It's the problems that products are creating for us, and we have no power to stop them because they actually are a bunch of people with money. And they want money, which is wild. So it's like, I think this could be better summarized than what I just did, and I want it to be so that like anybody hearing this right now who can pass this on, there can be, and I'm sure there's other people doing this simultaneously as we are, because like as I said, we're in the environment together, and we start having the same sorts of ideas if we have the right resources. So what we need to start thinking about is like, what is this, so we can label it and move on. We have to stop getting sidetracked. And it looks like real human problems. It's not. It's a product that wants to exist using humans as its like it's its meat puppet.
Yeah. So I did say that I wanted us to go longer, and we definitely can.
Oh,
But now that it's 3, and I've done a bunch of stuff, I'm good.
oh, okay. I'll just go.
If you want to keep going, then
Yeah.
like I will also keep going, but I'm also good to stop now.
Okay. I'll go a little bit more just because I realized I could put a little bit more clothes away, and that would be a good idea.
Cool.
Hi,
I'm gonna go
Merlin.
do some more dishes.
Yeah, it'd be nice if I'd finish this. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've missed so many Housekeep-a-thons recently, like things have really fallen apart. So it's just
Yeah,
so
Kyle can
much to
pop in.
do.
You don't even have Rowan. If you want to take a break, Kyle can pop in.
Well, yeah, okay. I'm already in the kitchen, so I'm gonna do some more dishes, and then
Good.
once I'm done there, I'm gonna pop out.
Okay. And also, it's like if anybody enjoys these discussions, and I know it's a small group of people, and you're like, hey, this added a lot of value to my life, then I think the big thing to do is like keep thinking about it, keep engaging with these sorts of ideas. If you meet anybody like me that engages in these sorts of ideas, pay attention to them, and stop paying attention to people that are really just like product meat puppets. Hi. Also,
Hello, can you hear me?
yeah, I was gonna say something like
Oh,
the stop pay attention to people that are product meat puppets. The reason why to stop paying attention to them, that's not who they really are. Pay attention to them when they get to be themselves. Like you're not helping
right.
them by seeing them as this product meat puppet. Like you're kind of like you're just not doing them any favors. And like if you want to respect people, like don't see them at their worst, which is when they're a product meat puppet. Okay, sorry. Hi. What's up, Kyle?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wait, yes. It's a little muffly.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear. I think it's mostly because I'm using the, so I don't think I have the best microphone with Discord.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's weird because these headphones work better on phone calls, but then the other headphones work better on Discord. You would think that it'd be the same, you know?
I have exactly the same thing. The like my Sennheisers, which is what I'm wearing right now, work better for Discord but aren't as good for phone calls.
Mhm.
And then my wireless earbuds are really good for phone calls but are terrible for Discord.
It's interesting.
It is. I would guess
there's
it has
probably an
to do with
answer out there somewhere.
codecs, like the way the codecs are set up. Maybe interacts with different hardware differently. I feel like you would know more about that than I would.
Vaguely. I've had to. It comes up, but it's not something I'm hyper educated in.
Okay.
But it does come up from time to time, depending on the audio system and the microphone in question, etc., and what they're using it for. But I'm just a tool monkey at this stage in my life, unfortunately.
Tool monkey.
I get it. I've been a tool monkey.
I was telling Jane
Oh,
sometimes, and what?
is the mic, is Kyle, should Kyle be a little quieter? What did I do? Hold on. Wait, talk, Kyle?
Top Kyle.
Okay, that's good.
Kyle
Okay.
talk Kyle.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but I was just remarking on how, like we were talking about kind of like consumer products and stuff. Like for example, in my line of work, I'd never heard this before, but have you ever heard the term prosumer?
Prosumer?
Prosumer, Pro sumer.
I can
No.
infer what it means, but go ahead.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing to me because it's so cynical. Because there's, I deal with anything from microphones, speakers, lights, displays, which we all call TVs in the real world, but at my work we call them displays because they're not technically a television. It's a display. You know what I mean? It's not most of the time it's not even hooked up to a cable box. But anyways, basically there's a whole long range of stuff that we install, etc. And there's different grades of it. There's consumer grade stuff, which is not really that great. There's professional grade stuff, which is super expensive, and usually you do get what you pay for because the competition is so stiff that if somebody starts making bad products, they quickly start losing sales. But anyways, there's a cynical portion of the market called prosumer stuff, which is just exactly what it sounds like. It's stuff in the middle. And I just thought it was so funny that that's what everyone just decided to call it. They're like, yeah, we got a couple prosumer displays we're going to install. And it's like, it's cynical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's the real world we live in.
Just snobby consumers?
No. So for example, like a display that you have at your house, you probably don't want to run it 24/7 for 10 years. Right.
Right.
Whereas like a prosumer display is going to be able to do that. It's just that it's just that it's going to be like $10,000.
Right.
You know what I mean? As opposed to like $1,000 for the same size of the display, right? And different things like that. Typically with like, your microphones, like a Shure microphone, there's no consumer, prosumer. Consumer, it usually has to do with like speakers and displays are usually the two big things where there's going to be a wide range of its ability to work the way that it's being asked to by the customer who has all these dreams and crazy audio video systems just so they can have a Zoom call.
Interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
it's just
I've never heard that term before.
Yeah, I wonder. It's one of those terms. I wonder if it exists in other trades.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting to me about it is that I wouldn't have expected that section of the market to exist, right? Like I guess I know that there's like consumer grade products, like professional grade products, and then there's like industry grade products. And I guess I would have always assumed that like the average consumer or like a casual consumer that wants really high grade products would just buy the professional grade stuff. But there's at least in this industry you're talking about, there is actually an entire section of the market that is like not quite professional grade, but is like, far and away better than your average consumer grade product.
You know what's weird is
and it just
well, shouldn't it be more built like how the person uses it? Like the consumer product can be cheaper because the consumer doesn't need it to do all that stuff, but it does want it. Like they should have it do the stuff that they want it to do really well. And then it sounds like there's this other tier where it does stuff the person doesn't even really need, but it is better quality.
Well, it's one of those things where it's complicated because there's the functionality of whatever thing you're talking about, but then there's also its durability and life and life cycle, right? Like some things are just not built to last 15 years.
A t-shirt at someone's wedding. I'm sorry. Did anyone hear my joke?
Yeah, I heard it.
What was it?
Laugh. I said that should be a t-shirt at someone's wedding.
What is it?
You said some things aren't built to last 15 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Sorry.
That's a good one.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for humoring me.
No, there was I was confused because I said that, and then there was like I thought it was like a long pause, and then it sounded like you were like mid sentence, and I was like, "What on a t-shirt?"
Got it. Okay. And cut out.
But anyways, that's I don't want to distract too much, but just in terms of the weird world you live in, just know that it's always going to be weirder the more you learn about other people.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting to think about what Jane said with like consumer grade products being geared to do one very specific thing, which is like the common sense way to think about it. And I do think that's how products used to be. But I think that we're currently in an age where there are a lot of products that are being produced to do just so much more than you would ever really need it to do, and that makes it worse at doing the things that you want it to do.
It depends on the thing. That is true in many cases, and then sometimes it's also not that simple. Sometimes it is that simple though. So like for example, you know, you have your TV at your house, right? You have your monitor, right? And you typically turn it on by hitting a button or using a remote, right?
Right.
So what we have is the prosumer. Consumer TVs, there's this thing called RS-232. It's the name of a protocol. Same exact thing like Ethernet, right? That's what that protocol of electrical signal is recognized by the industries as that's its name, right? So HDMI is a type, DisplayPort is a type,
Yep.
etc. So RS-232. So like the TV that you're buying at Best Buy is probably not going to have it, whereas just for $3,000 more, they're going to give you the ability to plug in an Ethernet cable which is new, by the way. Within my time since 2013, TVs did not used to have Ethernet connection. Now all of a sudden, in the past like 4 years, like that small amount of time, they started to bring it out. But anyways, before that, they all had RS-232, which is an ancient protocol back before printers even used USB. And so this protocol has existed since that time to today, and they just reused it for controlling displays. I'm talking about like turn on TV, turn volume up, turn to input 2. And it's interesting because as an industry, we still use it all the time, RS-232. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just interesting to me that if you want to have a TV that has RS-232 so that the customer, all they have to do is go to the touch panel, press start conference, so the TV turns on to itself. Instead of having to know where the remote is to do that, they need to spend an extra $3,000 to have that extra port on the back of the TV just so they don't have to worry about losing the remote. Basically. But I mean, it's more than just that though, because there's that control ability, right? But then there's also again these TVs that are up in the higher price points. You can basically just like run them all day long, and they never quit. Unlike the TV that you buy at Best Buy, nowadays they're pretty rugged, but you can't push them, you know. Whereas when you spend the extra $3,000, you can just have them all, like like when you go to order food and they have the TVs up behind and it shows the menu.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably not a TV they bought at Best
Buy. Right, because they need to run it all day long, every single day, and
exactly.
Yeah, they can't be spending $1,200 to $2,000 on new displays every year.
Yeah, or even every 6 months when they burn out or whatever it is.
Right,
so
exactly.
It makes sense on that level to just be like, well, fine then. So to your point, it's that element that you described is there, and it's also sometimes it's just that cut, dry, and simple. It's like this is way more than what they need, and it's also gets cynical too. Like sometimes when you go to install something and you're like, no, I know for a fact, I just know who the person is at this point. Like you work with these different companies, and then you start working with certain companies. You kind of know how their sales guys are. You're like, yep, they sold them. That's all this is. They don't need it. They don't even need a quarter of what this stuff can do. They just got sold. It is what it is. And so that guy probably got, his $8,000 commission for 2 weeks of work. Congratulations, you just installed $250,000 worth of equipment. You got paid $1,000, and they're going to rip it out in 5 years when it becomes quote unquote obsolete, and they're only using 10% of its functionality ever. And it's just crazy. I'm just like, wow, you can just give me the money. Well, it's also weird too because a lot of these companies, these big companies, they need to spend that money or else they lose their budget. I'm sure you guys have all heard about that kind of stuff, right? It's not a it's not a fake thing. It's sometimes it gets overblown a little bit by people who are kind of from the outside looking in, but it is a real phenomenon where you have companies in these different departments, and the department is gonna, they're gonna be like, okay, I have $1 million to spend. I really only need to spend $200,000 of it. I don't even need to spend any of it. But if I don't spend this money this year, they're going to take all of it away. So I'm going to spend $1 million on stuff I don't need just in case the day I need it.
Right. Or even, like maybe there's certain factors that have kept the budget spending low for that quarter or that year, but for one reason or another they're projecting way higher spending next quarter or next year, but they know if they don't spend it now, they're going to get a budget cut and they're not going to be able to get everything they need next quarter or next year. So they spend the budget to ensure that the budget that they have stays where it is.
Yeah.
Which I understand.
And
like that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and like tying it back to like what Jane was talking about, you have like, because I was like really listening in, and I was like, that I think what she's talking about is definitely a newer thing in my opinion, at least, where it's like this cultural battle moment. But then it got me thinking about when she was talking about how it was something at least worth thinking about, like as we are all inundated with stuff, and then we're not embettering our ability to even acquire anything. Are the ads indeed going to start going towards people who have money, etc.? And it's interesting because there's a thing called people with money, but they exist in a lot of different ways too. And I think that when we get a little bit too much that it's every single one of them is a monopoly guy with a monocle, I think we forget that there's people with money who are buying stuff for their personal house. Like they want the $10,000 4K display TV right when it comes out, and even though they don't use it, they want the $25,000 sound system when they can't tell the difference between a $25,000 system and a $250 sound system. Those people exist. I've worked for them, and they really exist, and that's really their life. They're really just like, yeah, I might as well, right? Because it's better, right? And it's like, dude, you could like erase my debt.
Right.
You could save my life, but instead you're gonna like put this thing in your basement that you're never even gonna use.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But those people exist. Mm-hmm. But then another big thing is that there are people who make purchases on the behalf of corporations. And that gets a little complicated because they're purchasing on the behalf of corporations, but corporations are made up of people, so they're also having to deal with the people dance while they're doing that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They have someone that they're answering to that they need to make sure that they look like they're busy enough to keep getting the salary that they're getting.
This is why I'm saying it kind of these other things I think just grow out of those environments, like a mold or like a, you know what I mean? Like this is a byproduct that is starting to have its own life. Like if you leave the mold for long enough, you're like, is it sentient? Like this is the sentient mold starting to ruin people's lives. I don't think it was like an intentional thing. I think that once you have all of these interactions going at the scale that they're now going at with the devices that they're on and the people whose eyes are on it, which includes a lot of children, we're starting to have this dynamic that I'm very concerned about because like I don't know who it isn't impacting. If I broke this down well enough in language that somebody responds to, they'll know what I'm talking about eventually, right? Because we've met this.
A specific thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the point that stuck out to me was, I think originally ads were usually an aspirational thing.
Mm-hmm.
This will make you happier. This will make you prettier. This will make people like you more. Positive, positive, positive. This thing is going to make you happy, right? But it is interesting because I don't know of any ad from the 70s that was like, this is gonna really piss people off. There's definitely stuff about like, this will make people jealous of you,
Right.
right? This will make you the envy of the town. But I think that's a little bit different because it's still a positive.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas there is kind of a thing right now.
Well, I was just going to say, like, there's a social dynamic here happening that's new, where the person that's actually going to purchase is the one that's going to purchase because somebody else got mad about it. So that this is it's so insane about it. It's like, so it's not aspirational, and like in the aspirational thing, the pervasive problem was, oh, they make you feel like shit about yourself. Right now, it's like you actually feel good about yourself because you know what's right and wrong, and that's wrong. And then somebody else says, oh, you think that's wrong? Let me do it to piss you off more. That's where we're at. That's wild.
Right.
Yes, I think that's pretty accurate. And I wonder if that's going to be something that is more and more, or if that will ever curtail, or is it just a new form of thing? If indeed it's a real thing, obviously, right? I'm inclined to say it is, but
right.
I think that's kind of hard when we talk about phenomena because ultimately you're pointing at a ghost, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a physical thing that you can physically hold in the hand and be like, oh, it's blue and it's round. You know what I mean?
It's a dynamic. I'm pointing at a dynamic that's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's an accurate description.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, what I think is going to end up happening is like if we have enough discussions where we're leading the discussion and a product isn't leading the discussion, like there's no product involved in this discussion, right? Like at least not in the way I'm describing. Okay, so that's not happening right now.
Yeah.
So the more that we take time to do that and realize how satisfying that is, and how like, oh, this is me actually thinking about what I want to do today, and realizing that like sidetrack is the word that I've kind of latched onto because it's giving me an anchor to be like, what is that? And then to start seeing that additional layer that the people that are involved in the sidetrack look like people, but they're being treated as meat puppets. So I'm not even really seeing them. So I can look away because this isn't even the person anymore. It's part of a whole drama that's being forced onto people by this dynamic of products trying to sell through spite. Or realizing that they can for some reason. I don't know how conscious this is, but whatever it is, it's acting like its own autonomous thing at this point. And I do think that maybe there will be conversations that are explicitly had about this, but it's going to be challenging to even have the conversations because the products will insert themselves in news reports about it. Like, are you talking about us? And then and somebody will say yes, and then somebody will say, oh, you're mad that they were talking about them? Well, I'm going to buy it, and then we're back at square one.
It's definitely interesting having this much kind of free culture-based advertising.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes.
Without even getting paid for it.
Yeah, free culture-based advertisement that ultimately is making us poorer and less able to do the things we want to with our lives, and then we commit to it even more because now we need the lottery system of being one of the people that does it.
Well, and maybe I could be more specific too, because not to overuse a overused word, but it's almost like it's culture war-based free advertisement. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It sure does.
Well, something I think is really interesting is that, in a sense, it is still word of mouth advertising. But instead of the opinions of an individual that is genuinely interested in a product, it's like the manufactured outrage of that person speaking for the product as an advertisement.
The problem is, okay, so here's the issue with that is like, yes, but the word of mouth. So again, like, what would you actually ask your friends about? What would you actually pay attention to? If somebody's out there talking about a thing I don't know anything about, my natural inclination is just to tune it out. why can't I tune this out? Because it's not word of mouth. It's this incessant like feedback loop. Like, well, it's going to get tweeted about. It's going to get written about. 10 people are writing an article about. Well, 10 more people want to get that article viewed because they want to have a better career as a writer. So then they've made those, and then 10 more people make a YouTube about it. Okay, then 20 people make a YouTube about it because they want to hit the lottery too. So it's all these people trying to hit the lottery reporting on it. So they aren't even really invested in it word of mouth wise. They just want their career to take off.
Sure, but I would wonder how much they might sort of justify to themselves that this is what they're invested in. It is what they care about.
How could they believe that though when there's a new thing every week?
I don't know, but like from my perspective, I couldn't do that because I can't spend that much energy trying to make a living doing something that
the argument
I
then,
don't have a personal, because like
we
that's
don't know
literally where my life is at right now.
Yeah.
Is that like I don't have a job because I am so adamant that I will not continue contributing to an industry that isn't furthering what I want to be doing with my life.
So
certainly I couldn't do that on like a cultural
yeah. So imagine. So here's the other thing.
That's why I wonder that.
I think what's happening is probably people are burning out really fast, and then there's a new one in line. So people probably are getting wise to this, and this is why I think these conversations would be useful, because then the people that have already been through it can have a name for what they just went through, because I think their first name for it is I suck. Their first name for it is I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. And then you know why they'll think there's something wrong with them? Because they wasted a whole bunch of time getting sidetracked. So now they believe that they believe they're not quote unquote productive people. They believe that they're not people who can get things done, because this led to them not getting things done for years. So if the first thing they're gonna have to do is like dismantle that shame and have this conversation. So I think that could possibly happen. That could be one outcome. But then it's like, so then how do you get out of the trap? Well, then all those people wanting to talk about this, we have to not talk about products. We say, yeah, all products are all the same to us, okay? We don't want to be your skin suits anymore. We're not going to be your meat puppets. We're not going to be, we know you're there. You'll always be there, whatever. Buy a billboard. Fuck you. We want to talk about our lives.
Yeah.
They just tricked us into thinking we were talking about our lives when we weren't for a long time. And especially during the pandemic, I think it accelerated. And then that's as far as my analysis goes. I mean, because again, this isn't something intentional. This is emergent.
Well, you never know. Like it could become intentional as soon as a single person does it intentionally.
Well,
I mean,
there's sociopaths.
Not to completely contradict.
Yeah, no. I think a sociopathic mindset could take advantage of this, but in general, like, the problem with something like this is it's so chaotic that even if somebody wants to be intentional about it, they can't control this. Like, if you get to this scale, if you have something at this scale and you're relying on humans misunderstanding for it to keep working, there's no way to control a machine like that. So a sociopath can have grandiose delusions that they can control it, but they can't. Like, this is going to run its course and turn into something else because it's emergent.
I'm not saying that they have direct control over it, but simply by taking the action and then having some results around it, there's still an intention behind somebody creating some type of a quote-unquote drama in order to gain viewership. Now, as much control as they have over that, it's not going to be absolutely 100%, because they don't have absolute 100% control over the people who are involved in reacting to the drama. But if they intentionally start drama and then that drama does happen to take off, right? There is some intentionality behind that result.
No, I agree.
Because if they,
I agree with that. I agree with that part. No, I think that their intent, let me rephrase that. They're intending for that. They're not intending for this system to have some grand order to it. That's what I'm trying to say. Because that's not possible. Well, if people do intend for the system to have some grand order to it, they're fooling themselves, because this has too many X factors that are random. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is way too chaotic for somebody to actually make a system out of it. So if somebody thinks they're doing that, like, there are certain sociopathic types that would do that and be very grandiose about it, but they would be wrong. So like, they could do it, but that probably will be pretty weird. That'll be a shit show. But I think that like this isn't something with like a long-term plan. That's
I don't think so.
yeah,
I don't think
that's
so.
sort of my argument. And if somebody says they're gonna backwards engineer a long-term plan that this is all about, I think that's bullshit.
Well, it's kind of like anything else. There's always there. It seems like there's always different types of quote unquote ways of making money that pop up and go away and come back and evolve and it could go extinct, reappear, etc.
Mhm.
Um, like for example, the crypto bro thing. Um, was that ever going to work? A lot of people said it was never going to work. Does it look like it's going to work? It looks like it's in its death throes. To be honest, it might have a resurgence. It might be there and we just don't hear about it. I don't know, but at the end result of it is that there were enough. It was a real life event, though.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And whatever the intentions of the different people are, because there was people who I'm sure were 100% intending for it to become a new form of currency that they didn't have to rely on fiat currency anymore, right?
Yeah.
I'm 100% sure that there were people who are like, I'm going to milk these people and pull the money out right at the last minute because they're stupid enough to think that this could ever work, right? So the intentionality is definitely um, it's a complicated thing to think. But even if somebody doesn't have complete, even if their intentions are not based on the fullest assessment of reality, their intention is still there.
Mhm.
And even when something is delusional, it can still take off. Like for example, I don't think that it's necessary to enforce the covering of certain genders' hair, right? That seems to me to be delusional, but it's a real world event, and there's real world intentions behind it. Now, those intentions between the different people could be various. Some people might think that they're actively doing the work of a benevolent creator. Some people might be doing it just because they want to have control over 51% of the population. But the end result still being up a real life event is that you have women who will be, uh, you know, abused if they refuse to cover it in public. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So they have a delusional belief in a real world event, and there's still an amount of intention behind it. It's just not just like a random thing completely. There's
No.
people who are there's people who are contributing to it.
Yeah, so people's reactions cluster, and like people will react to things based on social reality, like things that they agree on are true, whether they're true or not. So then you
Uh-huh.
can predict people's behavior based around their beliefs and like the ideas that they or ideologies that they subscribe to, because they want to be predictable in that way. They want to follow their belief system correctly. So you can
Mm.
manipulate people in that sense. The problem is that like there's so many little cultish like things that are cropping up that aren't really belief systems. They're kind of just like random assortments of people trying to cope with lots of problems. So there's a lot of there's a lot of people that feel very lonely and don't know how to connect with other people, so they're creating ways to connect with other people that then they have to make sense of. Like they have to make the ideology make sense or they'll get kicked out of the group. So some of that dynamic is really unstable, but it's currently, causing a lot of like, well, people say like social contagion is a word that pops up because we're seeing the fact that people are organizing themselves in little social groups, and then they have to basically like follow the rules, but the rules just got written 5 years ago at most. So
Uh-huh.
it's extremely confusing, and it's a lot of like saying, well, someone's an out group. And my thing is that while I feel that's natural, once a product is part of it, you should start to be really on edge about that. Like
Right.
we don't want people to be put into an abusive group. We are worried about people being in abusive groups. A lot of the times when people do make some video essay or article, they're saying like, oh, these people are getting hoodwinked and conned, and it comes from this thing where it's like sort of this concern, and then we'll say, oh, well, now you're um, concern trolling, right? So we even have terms to describe that impulse to try to get people out of an abusive or high control group. but but that whole thing is like, I think, bullshit if you look at it and at the end of the day there's a product and nobody's getting to do what they want with their lives. Like if the product is if they're selling you something really 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 expensive in particular, then that's questionable. Like it's very questionable. Whoa, where'd he go? Hello?
Ba-doop.
I think what's happening is we're not questioning this enough.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
I died.
It's okay.
I'm dead.
I'm
That's all right.
dead.
It's all right. But yeah, what I wanted to say there is that, like, I think there's a lot of things that are worth questioning that we aren't able to question because we're not sure what group rules we're supposed to be following. We're supposed to believe something that other people believe, and good people believe this, and bad people believe this. And then what happens is somebody says, "Well, you believe that. Well, only bad people believe that." You're like, "Oh, you think I'm bad? Out of spite, I will now buy a product." So, like, for me, where I'm sort of like coming to with this whole conversation today is maybe the idea is like look for a product and to get out of this cycle, to get out of this like trap. And if a product is driving the conversation, is it even really a conversation? Like, how did this even start? And you don't have to be in a conspiracy theory land at that point. You could just be like, is this what I wanted to do? Why am I doing this? How did this happen? And if it looks like it only happened because products exist, and they aren't even products that you use or care about, or even people that you love care about, or even if they could be products that, like, you knowing they exist every single day is just making you feel unsafe in the world. Like, what the hell is going on with that in the case of guns, you know? So what is going on? And for me, it's like, I don't think that conversation has to be resolved. I think it just has to be like taking back your time and saying it's okay to take back your time. These aren't even really the people driving the conversation. It's this would not happen without products. None of this would have happened. So then how real is it?
How real is it in terms of like how should it be a real thing? Because I mean, it is a real thing once it happens, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, by real, I mean, let me put this over again. So, like, how much of us are in a social reality that's being made as we go? Like, are we is this a Mad Lib? Is this an insane Mad Lib? Like, what part of this is our real lives? What part of this is the things that we feel certain about? How much of this is even related to the things that we've invested our lives? Are we investing our lives in anything at this point just to keep up with this because it moves so fast and the rules keep changing and everything keeps pivoting to the latest fiasco? So, like, and are all the fiascos driven by products? So then the fiascos aren't really connected to each other. That's what I mean. Like, there's no real natural progression of this. It's just that products need to be sold and they all need a fiasco and they're all making a fiasco and those fiascos are now interacting with each other, but there's no rhyme or reason to it, and we're trying to make sense of it, and that's why it's driving us crazy, is there isn't really any sense to it on that level. Like, not on the level of people interacting and having conflicts. These are not actual conflicts. These are products that need to make a fiasco, making fiascos simultaneously until we don't have any way to walk out of our door and not be hit by 10 fiascos.
So would you say that overall, what is it that your goal is to keep this like in people's minds so that they can pay attention to it, or
Mm-hmm.
do you have a singular goal per se, or what are your
Yeah.
thoughts like downstream of the phenomenon?
Yeah, so I want people to keep it in their mind, and then we need a language about it to label it so we don't have to get caught up and confused about it. Because right now, it looks so much like an actual conflict that we're stopping what we're doing because it looks like an emergency. So we can't,
Right.
it looks like people with real emergencies, and we don't like suffering, most of us, like the overwhelming majority of us. And when you have like 55 fiascos, one of them is going to sound like something that you're the right guy for the job, and you're going to pay attention to it and want to help people. So and it's going to be a new fiasco tomorrow. You might be able to keep track of a couple of them, but you'll realize after a while that, like, there's so many products involved, you're not moving and shaking it, the products are. There's something new that can be sold within each of these fiascos, and as the fiascos get bigger and bigger, more products are attracted to it, and more products drive it forward, as far as I can tell.
Right. Right. And it's like, what I would say is like, if I had to say anything on it, if I was going to talk about this with like to an individual as see it, oh, there's a vulture right above me. Wow. I wonder if it senses my inner sense of dying. I'm just kidding. They're big. Have you ever seen a vulture in real life?
No, I don't think so. If I have, I forgot.
It's all good. They're big. Anyways, I was gonna say like, I think for me personally, like if I were to have to like, because okay, we're talking about this, right? And when I'm talking about this with you or with Rowan and the people in chat, etc., I'm thinking about it in a couple different from a couple of different directions. I'm thinking it from it in the direction of just speaking about it as best as I can in terms of like systems and how the systems work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately we want to try to contribute to systems that increase the longevity and um, the quality, etc., of a person's life, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not personally an advocate for you're born and you just stay in a little box your whole life and then you decease at 45 from a heart attack and your diet consisted of orange soda and cheeseburgers, right? I'm
Right.
never going to advocate for that. And
Right.
somebody says like, but that's what I'm always going to have the opinion that I think you think that makes you happy because there's other things that I guarantee would make you happier. But that's not for me to say. I can't force that decision, right? So, for example, that's kind of like thinking about in terms of systems, right? I don't want to contribute to a system that says that that's the goal, right? That should be the standard. I don't think that should be the standard. Um, but if I had to speak to an individual, the conversation would kind of shift to an opposite side of thing is that, well, just pretend like you can't do anything about changing the system. Just live as if you can't change it. Because what that's going to do is force you to adapt yourself to the current situation so that it's not affecting you as much. And then when you're not being inundated and held down by the thing that's oppressing you, then you can turn around with more force to then enact the changes. But it's hard to get the thumb off of society when you're underneath the thumb. You need to be to the side of the thumb and push it over.
Right.
You can't lift up the thumb. The thumb is too heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to the side of it, you can push it off. It's easier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of applies to a lot of different things because it's the same exact reason why even when you look at political leaders, et cetera, I mean, other than people like Gandhi, who the thing about Gandhi was being impoverished, but still Gandhi had people around Gandhi, right? So Gandhi had a different kind of wealth. Gandhi had social wealth. It's very, very hard to change anything when you're constantly running on the hamster wheel that you were basically put into, and everyone else around you is saying that just run a little bit faster and it makes more cookies come out of the hole. Just run a little bit faster, it makes more cookies come out of the hole. Right? You're somebody who's looking at it like, I don't even want those cookies in the first place. And second of all, in second place, I don't want those cookies. But first of all, I shouldn't have to run on this stupid hamster wheel to get anything out of it. You know what I mean? So I would say that so I would say this. I've noted I've been paying attention to my internet usage, and I do go on Twitter, right? And so I see firsthand exactly what you're talking about, and it's just about as bad as you're saying. You know what I mean? People having arguments and disagreements over whatever product of the week. It almost seems to be like 2 to 3 products a week in greater or lesser degrees. Some blow up way more than others. But yeah, ultimately, we're having people. It seems as if they're being stressed out because how else does somebody create a Twitter thread where if you check the timestamps, it takes me 30 seconds. It took that person 2 hours to have this conversation.
Yes.
2 hours to have a conversation about whether or not they're going to buy this thing.
And there's no way that they woke up in the morning and that was their plan is the issue, right? Like I should hope not.
One would hope so, right?
Yeah.
And I would never advocate for a system where somebody did wake up with that intention at the first thing in the morning because it just does not seem healthy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I say all this to say this is that before clicking on any app or anything like that, ask oneself, why am I opening it? Because, like, for example, when I go on Twitter, I noticed it myself. I was like, wait a second, I'm just naturally clicking on this right now for the past week, right? And I had that thought, and I was like, okay, it's like a muscle memory because it's on the same spot on my phone. I go over to the right hand side of the phone, click open the folder that has all those types of apps, I open it up, and I scroll through, see something, and then I'm like, oh yeah, this is what people are talking about. Not what people are talking about. That's what 10,000 people are talking about. But 10,000 is not that. It's a big number, but it's not indicative of the entire population either.
I'd argue that are they really talking about it? This is what I'm saying is like how much of this is like this meat puppet effect where it's like am I even really hearing this person talking about what they want to be talking? Like I'd rather hear what they were thinking when they got out of bed and said this is what I want to do today. I never get to hear that.
Right. I agree with that. I mean, I think that maybe some people do want to go online and get into arguments. I kind of believe that at this point. They just want to go and talk.
I think they already think it is a crisis because it seems like a crisis. This is why I'm saying I want this framework to maybe exist or something better than what I'm suggesting where I propose, well, is there a product using you as a meat puppet? And it seems like you're really arguing, but I'm going to suggest to all of them that none of them really want to do what they're doing. Like they wanted to have a real argument. They wanted to overcome something or change something and nothing's happening. That would have been them going with their original plan for the day. That would be them overcoming something. They had an idea, and now it looks like they're interrupting their idea for an emergency between people, and it's not. It's an emergency created by products where people are serving as part of that dynamic, but it's not even them anymore. Like that's what I'm saying. Is like yeah.
I'm wondering how much of it too can be attributed to. It seems that, at least in our culture in this current time, that I mean, when I say our current time, I don't mean the past 10 years. I mean, like, since the 1900s, even before then. I'm basically saying, like, our time being not the Bronze Age. You know what I mean? Like, this epoch being really big. I don't know exactly if I could exactly say the number. I would even go so far as wanting to go back to, like, the 1700s when you first started having people more motivated to get involved in politics because at least the boundaries were starting to seem as if they were coming down. Because in the 1300s, you and I would not be arguing about politics because we're nowhere even near having any say in it. You know what I mean? Which I'm glad we have a say in it. What I'm getting at, though, is depending on the product now, because now we're talking in general terms, which I think is fine, but at the same time, I think we have to also be able to talk about concrete details now without having to explicitly say a given product and do exactly what we're talking about. I noticed a trend, and this is anecdotal, that I think that a lot of times the discussion is wrapped up in the culture war, right? It's a lot more complex than just right versus left, obviously. But that's usually a good one to kind of start with because it's kind of the broadest one. But I think that these types of discussions are a proxy for the broader thing that people are fighting about, if you will. Yeah. That's my opinion, at least.
Sure.
It's not Bud Light. It's whether or not you're over here or over there.
Right. Well,
it's not coning. You know what I mean?
That's sort of what. Well, I'll say this really quickly. That's what I was saying that earlier on. It's like it's kind of saying like I'm on this. I'm definitely not on that team. Like maybe we don't know exactly what team we're on and what belief system we have, but we don't have that one, and we want to make sure that that belief system is extinguished.
And I think the product. I think I know you don't play a whole lot of video games, but are you aware that like there kind of was a time with gamers where it was like Xbox versus PlayStation. Are you an Xbox idiot or are you a PlayStation moron?
Yeah.
Right? And then all of a sudden it became, are you a console gamer or a PC gamer? Right? Mm-hmm. And then it became, oh, are you a hardcore gamer or a casual gamer? Right? So the product, I'm wondering what the product is. Is the product inclusion? Is the product safety? Is the product the ability to be mean to somebody? Because I'm wondering if these little smaller products are kind of more in like a larger suite, where it's not so much that you like the Fender Strat or the Yamaha PS2 120. It's that, do you like Fender or do you like Yamaha? You know what I mean? Well, it's not so much the.
Well, go ahead. Yeah, just finish your thought. Sorry.
I was just going to add one more example. It's like, it's not, to me, it seems like it's not so much are you a Ford F-150 guy or are you a Toyota Corolla guy? It's like, are you a Ford guy or a Toyota guy?
So I
Just
think,
stuff like that, basically.
yeah. I think so. I think
Where
brand
I'm wondering if
loyalty.
there's a broader.
Sorry, finish.
I was just saying, I'm wondering if there's even a broader product that we're engaging in. Like, for example, I'll finish. Your political view being the product. You know what I mean? Like, which political view have you bought and subscribed to?
So I don't think it's that. Okay, while that might be emergent, I don't think so. What I think is happening is people are okay. I think that anything that can get spite dollars is getting spite dollars and for any reason. So maybe it's getting the spite dollars, like it's getting the spite dollars because people are organizing into little cliques. People are organizing into little cliques because we're lonely and afraid. We're organizing into little cliques because we want to know what's right, because we're failing in life. We are looking for somebody to tell us how to live life so that we're going to be okay. So we organize in little cliques. We see people that seem to be doing okay. We agree that they're doing okay, and all of them don't like some other group of people, and they define themselves as okay by being aware that this other group is not okay. So it's like all this stuff of like, I know what's going on because I can tell the boundary between good and bad, and those people are bad. And then so you have that, and then you have the people who are getting called bad or deplorable or whatever, and then those people are suckers for buying a bunch of shit that is aligned with the thing that the people that are saying it's bad. Like, so basically, like, somebody says something's bad, and the product is still just the product, in my opinion. I think it's just like a lot of products can capitalize on this and are doing it, and it's whatever product's the biggest for the most part. Like, if ballet was bigger, ballet would probably do it too, but ballet is a smaller product and it's not so much doing it. Like anything that has um, a large enough platform that it can actually get attention in this way is getting attention in this way. So like I don't think the product is the clicks. I think the clicks are forming organically, and the clicks was our attempt to find meaning in our lives. And then what's happening is we're not finding meaning in those clicks, and instead those clicks are turned into this cycle of making us angry enough that we buy something out of spite to piss off the other clique that we don't like. So like,
I don't think.
eh,
Sorry, go ahead.
well, yeah. So I think like it's still for me like then it gets us out of like a conspiracy thing. Also, I think like just to say like why is this product part of your life? It has nothing to do with you, and why is it part of any of
Yes,
these people's lives? Does it really have anything to do
yes.
with any of us?
I don't think I don't think I expressed my viewpoint accurately enough because I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I
Right.
don't think it's the product itself.
Hmm.
I think that it's a broader thing than that. And so I don't know if I explained myself well enough. I don't know if I made it right. But yeah.
Right. No, well, I mean, I think we mostly agree. There's one place where I think I pivot, and it's like, so instead of framing it as like a meta product, like I don't think the clicks are a product. I think the clicks are a normal part. Like that's like the inner ring thing. Like I think clicks are natural. So I think we're making clicks for all kinds of reasons,
Oh,
and
no.
we're doing it in this
Did I
environment.
disconnect?
What? You're there. Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh. I don't wanted to like resolve this because I was okay. Let me see. Did he go away? No, he's still there. Kyle, can you hear me? You know, I'll just practice saying it. So I think the clicks are happening naturally on a platform that is run by products, and the products are noticing the clicks, and for algorithmic reasons and data reasons, all kinds of reasons. Like I said, like this is the mold that's growing and becoming its own thing. Um, they've been responding to clicks by inserting their product. Now it's gotten to the point that the products are interjecting themselves into every single click all the time because it makes somebody mad enough to spite purchase, is what I'm saying is happening. And then so there's no like they don't care about the clicks though. Like the products were already there. The landscape of the products was already doing what it was doing, and then we were trying to form social bonds in that platform, thinking that we could just like do that there, and we clearly can't because the products are like, hey, what about us guys? We run your lives, right? come be our meat puppets. And I think
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I drove to the top of this hill thinking I would still have service, and then it cut out on me.
Oh no.
But also, because it's 4 o'clock, I need to start. I need to leave. I need to. Because it's 4 o'clock. I have to leave here so I can get home.
I should stop
So
streaming
I'm gonna
anyway.
have to leave.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think that just makes it like a good stopping point anyway.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to end anything. I just had to say I had to. I didn't want to just like drop out. You know.
No. We should stop anyway. This is perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thank you for the talk. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you.
Okay, doke. Bye, Kyle.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. I'll do peer support in the morning. I'm just gonna stop the stream right now. If you enjoyed this stream, it is saved. You can make people watch it.
You can make people watch it.
And there's no product at the end of it, so you know. Woohoo! All right. Bye.
Bye, friends.